Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with John Layfield. John, what's going on, man? How are
It's
you?
David Ato! David Ato! We're all doomed!
Oh, my God. What an unbelievable call this past weekend. We're all doomed is still, well, I shouldn't say still. I've been telling you off air since you said it. I immediately couldn't help myself and texted John during the broadcast. I normally never do that. I know people are working. But we're all doomed is a top 5 all-time classic call in a wrestling show, especially in the context of, oh God, not a demon puppet. We're all doomed. It was tremendous. Of course, we're talking about TripleMania. It sounds like it was a lot of fun. Was it?
Oh my God, what a blast it was. That was one of the most fun shows I've ever been a part of. That was so freaking fun. When we started the show, Corey asked me on air, of course you're in character, but he says, what are we expecting here? You have no idea. This is going to be wild. And it is. I mean, from Pimpinella to the world's smallest mini to the world's biggest giant to iguana reptilian love triangles to puppet fights. It's insane. And some incredible work, by the way.
Was this your first time doing commentary with Conan? I imagine you have with Graves before, but never Conan, right?
Now, I have with Corey. I think of many times. I believe I can't remember. I've worked with Corey. I don't know how many times, but first time with Conan, yes.
How was it? Being a 3-man booth. I've heard from certain guys they really like 3-man booths. Other guys I've heard, well, it makes it much more difficult. I don't really like a 3-man booth. But anytime you've got the opportunity to get analysis from someone who lived it all and did it all from day one. You want to talk about product knowledge? Hell, he helped write half the book about Lucha Libre. We're talking about Conan, of course. What was your experience like with Conan and doing a 3-man booth? I mean, the first time together on a pay-per-view, it's a tall ask.
It's a tall ask, especially when you're talking about their WrestleMania. You're TripleMania, but that's their biggest show of the year, and it's one of the biggest shows of all time, biggest shows in Lucha Libre history, because that's the first big show between them and the WWE. That is the official first big show, and so it's a huge thing to put 3 guys together that never worked together. But Conan is so. We talked about it last week. When the business world was in a funk, and you couldn't sell tickets in North America, he put 48,000 plus people in an arena and helped create this incredible Lucha franchise, which is in my opinion, the most valuable franchise in the world. That is TripleMania. And he's been there for everything since. And so Conan, I love Conan as a person and as a booker. He's this incredible legend. It's great to be out there with somebody who knows everything. He brought a lot of these guys in. He was there with Pena when he was discussing, his last creation Aerostar. So it's great to have a guy like that.
Of course, we're talking about TripleMania this past weekend, and what an incredible show it was. I hope everybody had a chance to see it, but if you missed it, don't worry about it. It's on YouTube, and what a big audience this was. I mean, I think this is probably one of the most widely viewed TripleManias of all time, just because of the platform it was on. Free for everyone on YouTube. You see the attendance there, 19,691. John, a lot of our listeners, they've never been to a real lucha show, a big-time lucha show like this. I will say the production of this looked much better than what we've seen in years past for AAA. You got to think that's a lot of Jeremy Borash's and WWE's influence. What was the vibe? What was the energy like in this building compared to, say, a WWE PLE?
Incredibly exciting, especially with the talent. We talked about first about the crowd and the vibe in the building, but the talent was thrilled. I talked to a lot of the luchadors down there, that I'd known over the past year, and some that I'd known for years and decades. But these guys were excited. These guys are, some of them have been around for a long time in the early 50s, which is not an old age anymore for wrestling. And they were telling me how excited they were. They're like kids. I mean, this was to them was like they've got in this new birth, which a lot of them have, and they understand that. And the production to me was so good with what they had done. He had the whole everybody down there. You had WWE talent down there. You had Triple H down there. You had Nick Khan down there. Which you saw the pictures of all these guys. But they went over like WrestleMania schedule. They went over the rehearsals and all the different stuff they did. I mean, there's a lot of structure that for the first time these guys have structure in their system. That's going to help them tremendously. And I think that's why the show was so good. That was one of the best shows, Conrad. I mean, you got to check it out on YouTube. It's one of the best shows I've ever been a part of. I thought it was that good from top to bottom. That thing was wild. It was crazy, but it was incredibly well done.
And I got to give them credit. They kept it under 3 hours in very WWE nature. It was 6 matches, and they've been running smaller match counts on some of the major WWE shows. And I do think it allows it to flow better. I do want to talk about some WWE stars who were there. And I really want to talk about some of the differences from Lucha, because I'm sure some of our listeners were checking it out for the first time. But one of the things I've always appreciated or enjoyed about Lucha is the way they're able to keep these characters going. So, for instance, we saw, I guess, what a lot of people may refer to as the new La Parca. Totally different guy. I think this is probably the third, maybe more than that, who's carried this character on. But I feel like this is a taller guy. This is a leaner guy. It's a totally different body type. But the La Parca gimmick lives on, and so does Taurus. A lot of people are familiar with Beast Mortos over in AEW. Well, I believe, based on what we saw, this has got to be IP that was created and owned by AAA. So they just created a new Taurus. And no one at my house knew the difference, John, and they were pumped that they were seeing one of their favorite characters again.
Yeah,
and I think from a little kid perspective, that's huge, isn't it?
It's huge. And there were a couple of those guys, people that had passed away. And in some cases, it was a son or a relative that's taken over. That's a Lucha tradition. Last year at TripleMania, Vampiro had his retirement match. It was really well done. Now you got to check it out. It was wild and crazy, like you see all the Lucha stuff. But when he would go around, you'd have like easel, like at a funeral, and you'd have a picture there, and then you would see maybe one of his old nemesis. Then a casket would be there, and it would pop up, and out would come one of these old characters, one of these old heels that would beat up, jump on Vampiro. It was really cool. Well, in the middle of that, that's how they re-debuted La Parca. The original La Parca had gone off, and they'd had a fight over the name. They went crosswise with him. The next La Parca that came along that was just as popular passed away. So this is how they brought him back. Vampiro brought him back, and literally when they opened up the casket, instead of him coming out, he had his arms crossed and he did his eyes around. The place went freaking ballistic. And then I think a few weeks later to a few months later, they ended up bringing him back. But that's how they brought him back. Typical Lucha style to do something wild and crazy that somehow makes sense. And since then, La Parca has been doing some things, not a lot, just kind of showing people that he's still, he can do the La Parca stuff, but he's incredibly over. He was the first one in the what they're calling the Copa Bardal match, but it was the Royal Rumble match is what it was. And he was the first one in it, and he was the last one eliminated by Omos.
Yeah, let's talk about Omos. I mean, what a debut. I mean, he looked like a different dude. He looked like he was in shape. He had different gear. I love the presentation, and man, what a moment it was. Him and Microman. I think this is the Microman debut on WWE programming. I've been a big Microman fan since I first saw him in MLW, and I know he's made some other shots, but the visual of Microman and Omos, that's about as good as it gets. That's pro wrestling to me.
That's biblical. That's a biblical confrontation. Absolutely. He should have hit him with a trash can is what he should have done. Just crowned him with a trash can. That's what he's supposed to do to the little guys. But look at this. I mean, this is insane. I mean, Goliath won. This wasn't something. This wasn't a repeat of old times. This is where Goliath goes, you know what? I'm really a giant, and I'm just going to toss this little guy. It was awesome.
Isn't that all of us when we're at a cookout and we got to break up the bag of ice? I mean, that's pretty much what it looks like.
It was so good. The little guy was, it comes out. They had this Royal Rumble was crazy, and you had, we'll talk about it in a minute. We had Pimpinella before that, and her and Otis, I thought, just stole the show. I thought Otis stole the show. Then you have the matchup of the century. There was like 120 million views I saw on something online that looked at this between Omos and Microman. 120 million. And that was as of yesterday. That picture right there. I mean, this thing has gone beyond viral.
That's a reminder too. I mean, I think a lot of times people are trying to figure out, hey, what's going to be hot? What's going to get attention? What's going to cross over? What's going to land outside of the bubble? Sometimes I think we overthink that. Why don't we put the tallest dude in wrestling with the shortest dude in wrestling, and ta-da, people will line up. It's weird that we overcomplicate things sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, Micro Man, he's an expert in the art of hand-to-knee combat.
Yes.
He's probably the greatest step ladder match champion of all time. And so he has a lot of credibility in his background. And just this was so fun to look at, just to watch, to see that this happened. Micro Man is tiny. And I mean tiny. Hornswoggle will be doing the Andre the spots with Michael.
He has. Have you seen that before?
I have, yes. In fact, I saw Hornswoggle put it out, and it was awesome because that's what I was thinking was Hornswoggle would be the giant compared to Micro Man is tiny. I mean, absolutely tiny. You have to see him in person to understand how short he actually is. Then you got this giant and you've got to see almost in person. It is shocking how big he is. I've been around a lot of giants. This guy stands out he's a giant among giants.
I'm really excited to see him doing stuff in AAA too. I know that we've talked about how loaded the WWE roster is, and it does feel like it might be the most loaded in history right now. But if he can get some TV time, or a guy like Otis, who I think, man, he's maximized his minutes on WWE programming. I've got some casual wrestling friends of mine, and man, every time they see Otis, they smile. And I feel like Otis is he's got an opportunity in AAA, at least I hope, to be an even bigger star. What'd you think of Otis?
I thought Otis stole the show. I mean, absolutely stole the show. I love Otis, by the way, as a person. Otis is the nicest guy. He is a pro wrestler. I mean, he just down to the core, he's a pro wrestler, and he's got this legit background, but he's able to play that caveman character, whatever you call it. I have no idea what you call it. It's just freaking entertaining. And the interaction he had with Pimpinella, the Exotica, that is the legend in Mexico, it was just fantastic. I mean, it was just, I thought he stole the show. I thought Otis did it incredible. I've always been a fan of Otis, but I thought he did an incredible job down there. And it's not the Royal Rumble, but the equivalent of the Royal Rumble. And by the way, almost when he went to Japan, because I talked almost as I don't know if you ever got a chance to talk to him. He's just the nicest guy in the world. Thank God that he's a friendly giant. Same with Paul White. Thank God he's a friendly giant because he'd have killed all of us. But almost went to Japan. He lived in the dojo. Well, they didn't have a bed big enough for him, so they had to actually stick him in a hotel room. He actually trained like a young boy. And I say that, those that know that, I mean, that's subhuman training they do with those guys. I mean, Otis went over there and actually trained. He'd go over there as a superstar. He went over there as one of the young guys learning. I mean, it's pretty cool what he did in Japan. And he made a huge name for himself. They wanted to keep him. I think it's going to be the same in Mexico. I mean, that man is a massive star. But that, to me, is one of the appeals of WWE getting AAA. Because now you don't have to just stick them on a loaded roster. You can stick them in Mexico, not stick them there, put them there, and they can become huge global stars now. And now when you bring them back, you don't have to put equity into them. They've already got it.
I can't wait to pick your brain about that, because I do want to talk about how that may be like a paradigm shift within WWE. But we talked about how great Otis looked over the weekend. I got to think it's because Otis's grooming is next level, and yours will be too, thanks to our friend at Harry's. I mean, let's be honest. Most razors suck. They're either way overpriced or dull after a few shaves, and they're going to leave your face feeling like it's been attacked with sandpaper. And don't get me started on those overpriced refills. $20 for a 4-pack should just be doggone illegal. And that's where Harry's comes in. Harry's is really the best of both worlds. You get a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades and a sleek ergonomic handle at literally half the price of other premium razors. Their precision manufacturing process measures each blade in microns. We're talking like aerospace level accuracy for sharpness and consistency. That reduces irritation and razor burn, especially around the neck. Each cartridge also has blades carefully spaced enough for a clean pass, but not so tight that they clog up like most of the multi-blade razors you've used before. But here's the kicker. Harry's isn't just one of the best engineered razors on the planet. It's also affordable. By owning their own factory and cutting out the middleman, Harry's is able to deliver top-tier blades for as low as half the price of the big brands. So stop overpaying for a mediocre shave. The factory that Harry's owns has literally been perfecting its manufacturing process for like 100 years. And I love that. They're able to just pass that savings on to us. And right now, for a limited time, Our listeners can get Harry's trial set for only $8. Plus, you get a free gift at harrys.com/wrestle. Just head on over to harrys.com/wrestle to receive our exclusive discount. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. That's harrys.com/wrestle. So, John, we're talking about Omos.
I've got my Harry's.
Oh, there you go. Look at you. You're ready to go.
Sir. I'm excited about it, too.
I want to ask you about Omos. I felt like we've all heard as longtime WWE fans, hey, this guy passes Vince's airport test. Have you heard about Vince and the airport test? What have you heard as somebody who worked inside the tent?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That was a legit thing. I hadn't heard it. I don't know if I've heard it called airport test, but that's exactly what it is. Vince wanted guys, when you walked around and look at that guy, goes, oh my God, look at that guy. That he looks like something different. The way the old guys drew money back in the day before television was they would show up to a town and they'd do appearances. And then a lot of times they'd do some strength moves and things like that. And they'd do like a small training camp. People come down and go, oh my God, I can't do none of this. I mean, look at these guys. Look how big these guys are. Look how strong these guys are. And that's where that's come from a lot in our business, was you wanted the guy walking around that, Thez famously, now this is among wrestling groups, would walk through the box office and through the arena to the dressing room because he wanted people to see the world champion had walked into the building because he looked so great in his nice suit and he was a big, good-looking guy. But that was the airport test was that. Vince wanted people that would walk through an airport and people would turn their head to look and they go, who is that? Oh, that's the WWE champion. And so, yeah, that was a legitimate thing.
Well, I'm asking because I wonder what is the future for a guy like Omos? If we know that, Vince used to book what a lot of people referred to inside the industry as the land of the giants. And he was looking for these guys who looked larger than life walking through an airport. But I notice with this current WWE regime, specifically Triple H, Braun Strowman's not there. Omos has not been featured on TV. Do you think the modern taste stylings of the powers that be inside of WWE creative right now, for whatever reason, focus on a different style of wrestling than maybe what Vince preferred? Do you think there's just been a paradigm shift in what the office likes relative to what Vince liked?
No, I think it's about availability is what I believe it is. I believe, almost got such good reports. And I listened to some of the reports this past weekend from people that heard them that mattered. And they raved about what he did in Japan. They're huge on Almost right now. So I think it's just about availability. I mean, you don't have that many giants that are that great. But I'm Braun Strowman I like a lot. I think he's one of them. I'm not throwing him in the category that's not great. He is one of the great ones. But you don't have, a guy like Big Show comes along. How many other giants came along during Big Show's reign? None. Right. I mean, you had Kane and Undertaker, but those weren't real giants. Those weren't giants. They were huge men, but they weren't like in the classification of giants. And you didn't have any. So it's not like you have 10 giants every generation. You have one usually. And so I think Almost is going to be the one that's in the generation coming up. I think they're very high on it, but I think it's about availability. I think they work with what they got. I think I think you prefer the big guys, but there's also this huge audience now that there wasn't an audience for women either 30 years ago to wrestle. And now their division is as big or bigger than the men's, and it's certainly equal or better than the men's. And so it's the same with the cruiserweights. What we used to call cruiserweights, now they're your guys that can fight because of weight levels in UFC that people realize, these guys are great fighters too. And that's changed a lot.
I really didn't think about availability, but you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Now, even though it feels like you've got a bigger roster than ever, there is less and less time because there is such a push to make sure that there's more opportunities to feature the women, which is a good thing. I'm not opposed to that. I understand that 40% of your viewership base right now allegedly is female, and you got to hope that there's a lot of little girls who are going to buy a whole lot of little merch. So I love all that. I think that's great. But I do wonder, like, even I know you said a minute ago, well, in Big Show, there weren't any other giants. And in that era, you are correct. There weren't any other that made stars. But, man, they really forced a lot of opportunities just based on size. Guys like Heidenreich come to mind. Not picking on the guy, probably a great guy, probably a nice guy, but it feels like, hey, if you met a certain height standard, you were more than likely going to get an opportunity on TV. And what happens after that is kind of up to you. And I just don't know that that's the case anymore, because you got some of the biggest guys in the business right now not featured regularly on WWE TV. It's wild.
Yeah, and I think that's true, very true. Under Vince, if you were a big guy, you got opportunities that little guys did not. There was no doubt about it. When Shawn and Brett came along, that was very unusual. But they really changed the paradigm of wrestling. During the Hogan era, you just pretty much had to be a monster, or you were in a tag team with somebody else that was your size, and you did high flying stuff and had a bunch of bandanas and sold a bunch of merch. But you're talking about the women is right. You now have half the time, and that's a good thing, because now the women have filled at least half the time. The men filled half the time. Whereas before you had basically almost 100% of the show basically for the guys, and you would have women doing some things out there, but they didn't have their own division. Now that you do, this is why it's so important to have territories like Mexico, to have territories in different places where you can send guys, because you've got so much talent right now. And even though you have wrestling on every single night, you don't have that many shows for the amount of talent that you have. I mean, it's really a top-heavy roster right now as far as talent.
Let's talk about the main event this past weekend of TripleMania. It was the best reviewed match on the night, according to the viewers over at cagematch.net. People love the four-way El Hijo de Vikingo, who got booed out of the building, even though he's a babyface. Picked up a win over Dominic Mysterio, Dragon Lee, and El Grande Americano. Let's start with the end and work backwards. How great is El Grande Americano in Mexico? You've seen this on WWE programming. John, you were in the building to see how the Mexican fans reacted to him live. What'd you think of El Grande Americano this past Saturday night?
He's fantastic. I mean, he speaks Spanish, obviously, as you would expect El Grande Americano to do. I told about the big fight that he had, boxer versus wrestler fight, when he had Julio Cesar Chavez in Tijuana in 1988 and beat him in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. It was one of the legendary matches in lucha history. That's when El Grande Americano really made a name for himself, after he had beaten Mascaras and Connect and all the guys. I think he's fantastic. That guy gets it. He came out singing La Cucaracha. It's just, I'm sitting there watching him going, there's somebody could jump this guy right now. It's just amazing what he's doing. I think El Grande Americano is absolutely fantastic and made for that Mexican audience.
Since we've been live this morning, WWE and AAA have put out a press release saying that TripleMania has shattered records for viewership, gate, merchandise, and social engagement. They had a peak live viewing audience of 614,000. 4.3 million people so far have seen the entire show on YouTube. There's 19,691 fans in the building, and it was actually trending #1 in the United States and Mexico. So there's a record 208 million views across all the different social media platforms. And as far as the gate, it is a record gate as well. So high fives all around, unless maybe you were Dominic Mysterio or a mystery man. By God, it was AJ Styles, of all people, showing up in AAA. It's a big star. It's a big reveal. And allegedly, Vikingo is actually going to be on Monday Night Raw tonight, along with Mystery Iguana. This feels like this AAA WWE partnership is checking a lot of boxes for a lot of fans. I mean, for people to be checking this out for the first time, this momentum, we're breaking records on the first one. This is probably what Dorian had in mind for a long time, don't you think?
100%. I was there when they talked to the group beforehand, and I don't want to if somebody else gives that information, they can do that. I'm not going to about what all was said, but it was really well received by all of the Mexican talent, by the WWE talent, about what the future was going to be. WWE didn't come down there to have WWE versus AAA. They came down there to have AAA, and that's a big freaking difference, because I was doing commentary, so I want to make sure how the show was positioned. Was it WWE coming down to fight AAA, or was this just AAA? It was just AAA. And that's incredibly important. That's terrific foresight by these guys to come down there and maintain the culture and the heritage. And it's not about WWE talent that's coming down to show that they're better. It's WWE talent coming down to be part of AAA. And that's a huge different paradigm than what has happened so many times when you have companies working with other companies. It's pretty much, okay, this is the WWE guys versus the AAA guys. No, this is the WWE guys that are down there now as part of AAA, trying to make a name for themselves in AAA as a AAA combatant, not as a WWE person coming down there to fight AAA people. It's a huge difference. I think they're doing an incredible job with it.
I do want to ask John about the Vikingo situation. I don't know exactly why the local fans were booing, but the rumor and innuendo is they weren't happy with the creative decision and the way this transition was handled to get the belt off of Del Rio and onto Vikingo. And I think that's where a source of the boos comes from. And I know that when Conan was going into the Hall of Fame, well deserved, he's so richly deserves the AAA Hall of Fame, that Rey Mysterio felt like he had to respond to all of the Alberto chants. And I guess I don't know exactly what was said, but I think it was something along the lines that he's going to bring Alberto in. Wait for him. He's going to bring him back. Is that where this heads? Do you think inevitably Alberto is going to be back working with a AAA/WWE?
Don't know. I don't know. I've said many times about how much I love Alberto, both as a performer and as a person. I like him. He's been a great friend to me for a very long time. And very respectful guy. And I think I've said before, I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world. I think he's fantastic at what he does. Very similar to, CM Punk when he left. The crowd was chanting, for CM Punk. Fans can chant whatever they want. Vikingo is an incredible talent. And, he's out there and he's receiving some of the brunt of this, probably because of this. I don't know that. But I want to tell you that Vikingo, very few times do you see the future of a business and know that it's the future. He's the future. I mean, that guy is unbelievable. This is his second reign. He held the first time for, I don't know, it's over a year. I mean, whatever it was. He's an incredible talent. And I don't know where it goes with all this. Fans can chant whatever they want. You're not trying to suppress it. Glad that they're there and glad that they're chanting.
Yeah, no doubt. Glad they're there. Glad they're having fun. Glad they're expressing themselves. I can't wait to see what happens next with Del Rio. I know it's a hot button issue on the internet. I've always kind of thought that was interesting. Yeah, I mean, if the fans there want him, the fans online don't want him. Like, it just feels like it's the WWE way. We're gonna super serve our base, our paying customer. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's and fans can do what they want. That's what's so great about them. When fans would chant something and wanted to hijack a show, I've been out there many times when they wanted to do that. I just thought it was, I'm glad they're having fun. I'm glad they pay their money. They're going to come and have fun. You can't tell them what to do. You're glad that they're there and you're glad that they care enough to do something. And I think it's just great that there's so much buzz about everything that's going on. One other thing we didn't mention was that iguana man is Conan. That kid is talented.
Yeah,
I can't even begin to tell you. After seeing him in person so many times and seeing the interaction with DiManito and Finn, I mean that Finn is incredibly talented as well as you know. But that a lot was Mr. Iguana Man doing that. It was just, he is unbelievable how expressive he is. The stuff he does with that little stuffed iguana. I mean, he is a massive star. Look at this. Look at this face. That's when he sees DiManito.
Yes.
That's what helped put DiManito over. The puppet right there. I mean, look at this. This is crazy. I mean, can you imagine Thez or somebody seeing this? Thez is spinning in his grave right now. But who cares? It's entertainment. It's fun. You've always had entertainment like this. And
I gotta ask, did you have "We're All Doomed" in your back pocket the whole time?
I had no idea I was going to say it. No idea. I just kept thinking this was a legend that I'd obviously known about for years. I'd heard about this Mayan legend that was coming back, and all this. That's what I was thinking. And I thought we're all doomed. That's why I said we're all doomed.
I love it so much, dude. We're all doomed.
And then when you had Demonito eating the iguana man, I mean, it's just I loved it. I mean, I love I love the horse shit. I don't care. It's entertaining. It's just fun. I even told Taker, I said, "Can you believe we're out here producing puppets?" It's great.
I really
people loved it. I mean, it's entertainment. It's what we do. You can have the great matches of the world. That's part of it. It's a variety show. Wrestling is a variety show. When you have stuff like this, this is what we do. And I've always enjoyed the horse shit, as Stone Cold used to always say it. The horse shit's what's fun.
Well, let's be clear. You're the guy who wore a full-blown halo with a cowboy hat on top. You're the guy who blew a blow dart to a tranquilizer dart at the big show to try to take him down like he was an animal at the circus. I mean,
I also wrestled Godzilla in Hello Kitty underwear.
Yes. I
have no problem with the entertainment.
I love that. You did mention something that we haven't spent any time talking about, but it caught me off guard right before the show went live. We saw Triple H make a post of himself, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker standing at the top of the entrance ramp before the show. And it's just wild. And even Triple H, I think, had a quote addressing that. Hey, if you would have told me 20 years ago, Undertaker is helping produce a AAA show, nobody would have ever predicted this. I think a lot of fans were caught off guard, but the idea that the Undertaker is going to be has been agenting with AAA. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, I was sitting there looking at Undertaker, Shawn, Hunter, and Savio Vega as an agent. And I thought, oh my God, this is about our old crew. This is our old crew's in charge of everything now. This is shocking, but not unbelievable. Those are smart guys. Savio's a brilliant guy. Undertaker is a brilliant dude. I mean, what he did at his Hall of Fame when he came out and he completely broke character for the first time and went in that speech and gave incredible speech. I told him afterwards, I said, man, that was brave, because if that hadn't worked, you had no chance of going back in character then. I mean, that was, brother, you went all in on the table, and he did a hell of a job. But he's a brilliant guy. And I mean brilliant. I don't mean smart. I mean brilliant. That's why his character works so well. So is Shawn and Hunter. I mean, these guys are the right guys to be in charge. They've always been this, I've always said on the show, when you ever get around a meeting, you can tell right away who's the most respected guy, because one person will be speaking. You'll have several others speak up, but you can see that in any meeting, and one person will speak. And when you're in a meeting, those are the guys that speak, and everybody listens to him. Taker was the guy. He was, they called him the locker room leader, which he was, but he was the guy that was locker room leader, not because of his position on the card, but because of who he is and because of the respect that people had for him. I mean, brother, when he's standing there, he's got the headset on and he's producing the segment. Boy, people don't mess with him. I mean, you got to have somebody that is in charge, and he's like Vince, and so is Shawn and Hunter. I mean, I thought it was incredibly well done, but it was so fun because I sat out to take notes and watch, all the rehearsals and stuff just to see if I see anything or whatever else when I'm doing commentary. I just want to kind of get the vibe of what's going on that day, and not really taking any notes or anything at that time, just kind of seeing what the rehearsal is and seeing if there's a vibe or in something. That's how I came up with the Demonito idea. There he is. He's here during the rehearsal. But when you're looking at all that, you're seeing these guys run these things, and it's just really cool. And they did an incredible job. I think they're doing. I mean, that was one of the best run shows, including WWE, that I'd ever seen. And we had some technical glitches, we had some problems, but it was overall, I think, just a fantastic show. And it's a lot because of those guys. Taker's going to do a hell of a job down there. I'm really excited about him.
Hey, something I didn't know. We're live here at somethingtowrestle.com. Universal is with us here, and he says, did you know that Mr. Iguana's puppet name, La Yesca, translated to English is marijuana? So I threw that in my my Google machine, and it says it translates to the tinder in English, which is a word for tender, highly flammable material used to start a fire. But in Chicano slang, Yesca is also used as slang for marijuana. That makes me like the iguana even more.
Me too. He is green, and so maybe I don't know much about Mr. Guan. He is the nicest young man. I can't even begin to tell you how nice he is and respectful he is. I love what he does. He's obviously a very smart guy, but I learned a little bit more about him with your your Webster dictionary, and I love it.
Well, I love going out with friends, but I don't always want to drink. And that's why I've been reaching for Soul's out of office gummies instead. They're the perfect little gift to keep the good vibes going and give me that light social buzz, but without the hangover. I call it my La Yesca. Hey, Soul is a wellness brand that believes that feeling good should be fun and easy. Soul specializes in delicious hemp derived from THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies are designed to provide a mild, relaxing buzz, but boost your mood and enhance your creativity and relaxation. By the way, the out-of-office gummies come in 4 different strengths, so you can find the perfect dose for your vibe. You can choose from a gentle micro dose. You can get a perfect buzz, a noticeable high, or a fully lit experience. With wellness at the forefront, you can feel good about what you're putting in your body. All of Soul's products are made from organically farmed, USA grown hemp. They're vegan and gluten free, and they're even low in sugar. And if you like their out of office gummies, you've also got to try the new out of office beverage. It's a refreshing, alcohol free alternative that's perfect for a little summer sipping. Plus, Soul has a lot of other amazing wellness products. You can get them with or without THC, including a variety of gummies and capsules that can help you improve your sleep, your stress, your pain, your focus, your bloating, and more. So bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Soul today. Right now, Soul is offering our audience 30% off their entire order. Go to getsoul.com and use the code WRESTLE. That's GETSOUL.com, getsoul.com, and use the promo code WRESTLE for 30% off. Hey, so John, I wanted to bring up something else as we're transitioning our conversation about TripleMania into John Cena. Because I saw John Cena say something the other day, and I guess it was like a fan convention where he was doing an interview or maybe he was doing sort of a panel discussion. But the quote knocked my socks off, maybe an even bigger John Cena fan. He was asked about whether or not he felt like the heel turn was a failure and if he felt like his first heel promo as a heel was a failure. And he says, quote, "No, I wasn't upset. No, I failed. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You can learn from failure, right? I went up there and bombed. Shit happens." I love that because that is the right strategy. I think if you're scared to make a mistake, you won't win very often. What a great mentality from John, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love John for that. I love John for, when he first came in, he was always willing to try stuff. I've always said about Pat McAfee. I love Pat, and I love Pat as an announcer and as a person. He's just a cool dude for those of you that don't know him. But when he got up on the table and he's going to do the guitars, whatever it was with Elias, if that doesn't work, he's got to climb down. And that sucks. Because all of a sudden now you've stuck yourself out there. But it worked. And all of a sudden now he had this thing where he climbs up on the table every time. And I told him that. I said, man, that's a ballsy move. Because a lot of people wouldn't try that. Because you don't know the outcome. And when you get up there, if it works, you got something iconic. And if it doesn't, you got something really shitty and you got to climb down. But that's what these great guys do. They try stuff. And when it works, it's a freaking grand slam. When it's not, they figure a way out of it. Vince always said it's live TV. What can possibly go wrong? And what he's saying is we're all pros. We're going to figure our way out of it. But you got to try stuff like that. I was there in the ring when the worm got created. And all of a sudden, the place went crazy. We're up in Canada, in Edmonton. Scotty Too Hotty does the worm, and the place goes freaking nuts. We couldn't believe it. And all of a sudden, he had something. He just tried something one day. I was there when the freaking People's Elbow got created. That's the worst move ever. And it's one of the most iconic moves. If you'd have drawn that up on a board and said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this real hokey move. He's going to do this over dramatic stuff and drop this elbow kind of like Muda, but he's going to do it in a way that's like covered in theatrics. You go, so that's horrible. It's one of these iconic moves, but that's why you've got to try this stuff. and you got to be willing to fail. And when you fail, a lot of times it's just as important because you stick that in the bag, go, okay, I know not to try that. But these great guys, they're constantly trying for things in different iterations. And that's the difference a lot of times between your top guys and your guys who will never get to the top because they aren't willing to go out on a limb and try stuff.
What I loved about John as he continued this conversation, this happened at the Fan Expo in Chicago, is he was asked, hey, would you have adjusted your heel turn if you knew that The Rock wasn't going to follow up after that initial moment at Elimination Chamber? And what John responded with, I thought was excellent. He says, what I'm hearing is, in a hypothetical universe, what different choices would you make? I'll answer that with hindsight. It's a waste of time. We must live right here and now in the excitement and adventure. We got 11 dates left. After, we'll be able to talk about all this bupkis in January after the thing is over. But we've taken the audience on a hell of a ride this year, and we've still got a ways left to go. So I'm excited about that. When I see these answers, man, it just comes through. This guy, and this is why this guy was the leader of WWE for like 20 years, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I've said it so many times that, he had the hardest role, I think, of anybody in the company's history following the Attitude Era to go to a PG era. And I think that's one of the reasons Michael Cole was so disliked. Now, one, Michael Cole was a heel, but they had JR was there calling pay-per-view matches with drinking beer and naked women and guys flipping people off and beating up the balls and all this stuff. And all of a sudden now you go to this PG era. And so it's tough. He's had the toughest role of anybody, I think, in the history of the business to carry the company like he did. And he was the right guy to do it. I don't know anybody else that could do it. And you see that from these interviews that John does. He's just a very thoughtful, very smart guy.
We should mention that Logan Paul came up with John Cena. And he said, rather than considering him overrated, he thinks he's perhaps underrated. Quote, I know there's not a lot of people that like him. He is not a likable guy. I disagree. I think he's underrated. I think he gets a bad rap. He's not an outsider. He belongs in the WWE. I think his best days are ahead of him. I think he's got championships in his future. I can tell you I'm not looking past Logan Paul, and I'm not believing any of this hype that he's an outsider and should be taken lightly. I'm training hard. We freestyled this before. I think that might be his last opponent. What say you? Do you think?
I would love it. I would love it to be his last opponent. And I can tell you from the mindset of John Cena, he's going to put him over. If he is, I say he's going to put him over. Somebody's going to quote me on that and, taking something out of context that I said. I think that's the most logical conclusion. And Cena is so good about the business. So many people have left doing, as we say, the right thing. Taker did it with Brock. I did it with Ray. I mean, people want to leave the business better. And Logan Paul, I think, is a huge part of the future of this business. And you're going to have some people mad at me for saying that. But, man, this young man is absolutely fantastic. I don't know what it is he has that if it's, I don't know if it's a character that he's playing or if he's just that. But whatever it is, it works. I think he's going to be a world champion. I think he's going to be a very good world champion. And I think they're going to draw huge money with him.
AOTV Productions is with us here live, and he says Dolph Ziggler suggested Cena's last match should be a gauntlet match where he faces 7 wrestlers and ends with a final showdown between him and The Rock. That's an interesting idea. I mean, if you could line up some of his most famous opponents and let him go out with one last match against all those guys, that's interesting. I guess the larger question is, do you think we see The Rock again before John Cena's run is over?
I don't see how it can't. I mean, you got 2 of the biggest stars of all time. You're talking about Cena being, potentially the greatest of all time, which he's certainly in that category. He's certainly, and to be talked about is pretty freaking awesome. Because I don't think you can definitively say anybody was the greatest. I mean, you might can, but that's subjective, and it's all just a matter of opinion. So yeah, I do think we see The Rock back with it, and I love the idea of the gauntlet match. I saw something very similar. I mentioned it with Vampiro in his retirement match down in TripleMania last year, where he had guys coming out of caskets and all kind of crazy things. His old nemesis, and everybody that would come out would be a different pop. From the crowd is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I think something like that could be pretty cool. Maybe not where it's a gauntlet match where who all is going to be there, but then just out of the blue, comes, a Randy Orton or a JBL or somebody that comes out of the blue. And all of a sudden now you have this match that was unexpected during this match. I mean, I think you can do a lot of window dressing with this. And the one thing WWE is so good about right now is the window dressing, about dressing up these matches in crazy run-ins and all kinds of things. I think they're going to do a heck of a job with it. I have no idea what it's going to be, but I love that idea of AOTV, but some type of gauntlet match, or at least having all of his great nemesis involved in that last match.
Since we're taking questions here, we are live here at somethingtowrestle.com if you've got a question for us. And here's one from AOTV Productions, another. He says, some fans have been taking shots at Triple H for his booking and how his body looks in the vacation photos with his family. I feel like some people just thrive on negativity. I don't know if you saw this, John, but I guess TMZ published photos of Hunter and Stephanie, or I guess Paul and Stephanie, on a yacht on vacation with their family, probably right before school starts back. I think they were in Greece or somewhere. And fans were pointing out, hey, he's had these trunks since before these kids were alive. These are the same swim trunks for 20 years. And I'm like, that just means he's an old guy. We've all got 20 years old. That's all that means. But then I saw people like taking shots saying, oh, he's losing his hair and he's not in as good a shape as he once was. And it's like, he's retired. What do you expect? Like, have you seen Arnold Schwarzenegger lately? Like, what do you mean? Father Time does no jobs. He's supposed to look different, right, John? My God.
Have you been to like all you guys out there? Have you been to high school reunion?
Yes.
Have you seen all these? I go to this high school reunion. I go, who are these fat bitches? Who are these old guys I went to school with? My God, they look like my teachers. They don't look like I went to fucking. I don't look like I'm not their age. I can't be. And if I am, apparently I look as bad as they do. And maybe I do, but I just don't like to think of myself as that. My God, man, I don't know how old he's 50-something years old. Compare him to the average 50-year-old out there. I understand he was a world-class athlete. I understand all that. He's running a multi-billion-dollar company. Kevin Nash one time had a bit of a derby, at one point. He's in great shape right now, but you know how we go. He hadn't trained for a while. And somebody said something about his derby. He goes, it's a sign of affluence. and look, the guy's worth a freaking fortune. I think he's doing a hell of a job. And he's on a yacht in Greece. And the only thing you can say is, as a 50-year-old guy, he doesn't look like he did when he was 20. Really? You dipshit. Would you trade with him? Would you trade for the bank account and for the yacht for his position? I think nearly everybody would. And don't forget to go to your high school reunion this year and look at all the people around and see about how normal people look. And don't forget to look in the mirror yourself, you bunch of fat bastards.
I love you. You just get fired up. I love when we get full tilt JBL first thing in the morning. It's good stuff. Yeah, I was kind of shocked. Like, hey, what did you expect? Why? I mean, the thing that I'm not.
He had a heart attack. He almost died.
Like, we're on the
99% blockage in one of his aortas or whatever the hell it was. He damn near died. He's lucky to not. That's right. He's lucky to not be in a freaking casket right now, somewhere buried. And he's on a yacht in Greece, living his life with his beautiful wife. I mean, yeah, really, he's got it rough. I'm so happy that you guys on your little internet, your little mommy's basements, while you're eating your little Cheerios for breakfast, are going, hey, did you see Triple H? Yeah, look at yourself, you dipshit.
Maybe it's time to start some cereal that has a lot of protein and no sugar. Maybe we need Magic Spoon. They've got that high protein, zero sugar cereal and treats reinvented from your childhood. You can taste the nostalgia. You're going to bite into it and you're going to be like, man, this tastes like the cereal I was eating back when Triple H was in great shape. Magic Spoon is also launching a brand new high protein granola. And true to the Magic Spoon promise, it's packed with protein and oh so crunchy. You see, Magic Spoon's high protein treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. They've got great flavors too, like marshmallow, chocolate, peanut butter, and dark chocolate. I prefer the double chocolate, and I double dog dare you to try it. You're going to love it. It's my favorite go-to snack now. And Magic Spoon's brand new granola packs in 13 grams of protein and 0 added sugars. My dad loves the peanut butter. Mom loves the honey almond. And dark chocolate almond is a hit at the office. They've got lots of great flavors in their brand new granola packs. And right now, you can get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/wrestle, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/wrestle for $5 off. Let's talk a little bit about TKO. We are going to eventually get to CM Punk. So if you've got questions about CM Punk, we certainly want to hear from you. But there was a tweet from Brandon Thurston I wanted to point out that was a business question. And man, you've made a lot of money investing in companies, charting their moves. And this is something that didn't immediately dawn on me that Brandon Thurston pointed out. He's talking about TKO's significant relationships that now exist across Disney, Netflix, NBCU, Nexstar, Fox, A&E, Paramount. A lot of these, of course, may or may not have exclusivity terms in the contract. So it may or may not be in writing. And we know that, that will be discussed. It's been discussed before. But I think you could argue that WWE may have effectively foreclosed nearly all of the United States wrestling television market at this point. There are a few prominent media companies out there that TKO doesn't have deals with, like Amazon, Warner Brothers Discovery, Apple. But MLW got its case to move forward when pre-merger WWE had deals of a lesser variety of U.S. media partners. So since there's been a precedent set with that MLW lawsuit. And this is before they had all of these tentacles. Man, this is crazy like a fox. They've been able to, this is almost, to make an analogy maybe some of you have heard before. When a husband and a wife are going to get divorced, and maybe they've got a bunch of assets, if one of the more savvy spouses goes around and meets with all the prominent divorce attorneys and takes a consultation or does business with all of those, in advance of the filing, you effectively block your spouse's ability to land a good attorney. And that's a crazy strategy, but that kind of feels like what WWE has maybe accidentally or intentionally done. I didn't even think of this, but this is great stuff, John.
It's terrific stuff. And this isn't a wrestling business.
No.
I mean, that was the whole thing with the WWE back in the 80s. It wasn't a wrestling business. Crockett was a wrestling business. Vern was a wrestling business. Graham was a wrestling business. Fritz was a wrestling business. Lawler was a wrestling business. Jarrett was a wrestling business. Vince was the one that was putting together infrastructure. He was putting infrastructure together so you could get closed circuit before you had pay-per-view. That's why he hired the Briscoe brothers. Vince was the one that was hiring business people. He was the one that hired Timmy White to go to these arenas and make sure they couldn't steal from Vince when it was all in all cash business. Guys weren't doing this. You weren't hiring people out of Hollywood to be part of your TV company back in the day because it was all guys were just doing wrestling. That's the difference now. Look, I'm not trying to insult anybody out there, but these guys they're not wrestling. This is an entertainment business. That Nick Khan is a freaking rainmaker. I mean, God almighty, he's like a freaking ATM. The partnership that you have with Ari, with Triple H, with Nick, with Bruce, with all the people that you have up there. I mean, this is a world-class operation. What they're doing together and the synergies that they have, throw in the bull riding too, which I think has always been, bull riding to me has always been the sports betting dream because you can handicap the bull, you can handicap the rider, then you have 8 seconds and all of a sudden you've got this instant either satisfaction or you get burned and you want to do it again, either way. And I say that because they bought the PBR, I believe it was with TKO. But they've got an integration now with all these cable companies. They are putting together this incredible, powerful global conglomerate that is going to be fascinating. And that's, to me, is what's so big about AAA. This is a huge deal. I mean, when you've got a guy, look at Natalya. Natalya, I think, has done a wonderful job. I've said this many times, how much I love Natty, love her husband, Tyson. I loved her dad, Jim. Jim was a really good friend of mine. Anvil Neidhart, you didn't know him, man, what a good dude. But you have Natty, who's now creating this new image of Natty, not Natalya, the granddaughter of Stu Hart, which is part of her image, which is going to all these different places. Well, now Natty's down in AAA. Now all of a sudden you've got a rebirth. You've got a person that's been around for a while in WWE. They've wrestled everybody. What do? Now you put them in AAA. or you put them into another place that you're going to buy or partner with. You create new life with them without expanding anything from your creative and without having to use up your roster. I mean, this is something that I've heard WWE talk about this for 30 plus years, about how this is a global presence they're going to have. They're building it now. And this is absolutely remarkable what they're doing. Wait to see what they're doing. What they're doing now is nothing compared to what this is going to be in 5 to 10 years. This when you talk about, is this a peak? I don't know. It may be a peak as far as talent. You don't know who's going to get over the next 5 to 10 years, or if somebody does. I feel like somebody probably will, but you don't know that for sure. You can't guarantee that, but you can guarantee the infrastructure that will be behind it. That infrastructure is going to be behind it is going to be global. And you're going to have, I think, territories in all these different places. You're going to have performance centers in all these different places. This is an incredible run that is just beginning with TKO.
Well, a lot of people are wondering, what does this leave for AEW? And there's been a lot of reports that perhaps WWE is trying to work with TNA to get them on CW or A&E to be heads up live on Wednesday nights at the Performance Center. And there's, of course, this conversation from Brandon Thurston about how, wow, WWE is kind of locked up a lot of media partners here. And now fans are actually trolling Tony Khan on social media saying WWE is going to come put you out of business. And Tony couldn't help himself and responded and said something like, that'll be the day, which I thought was kind of funny. But of course, now everybody's talking about perhaps WWE counter programming the next big AEW pay-per-view. We're talking about AEW All Out, which is going to be happening in Canada, Toronto, Canada, on Saturday, September 20th. And as the story goes, allegedly WWE is booking a last-minute PLE on like a month out in Indianapolis on September 20th. There's even speculation they may call this show WrestlePalooza, but that might actually be where they launch Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. Now, if you're a hardcore AEW fan, you may take a little offense to that. As a hardcore wrestling fan, I think competition's great. I mean, I look back at what happened in July, and people were all up in arms about Goldberg's last match happening on the same day as the AEW pay-per-view. That didn't affect anything. Both shows were tremendously successful. I don't think this counter programming hurts. I think it actually adds to wrestling as a whole. I'm all for Brock Lesnar versus John Cena happening that same day. What a big day that would be for wrestling fans.
Right. And good Lord, business competition. This is the first time that's ever happened. I mean, all these snowflakes out there going, oh, they shouldn't run the same day. Blow me. God almighty, man. It's how many times before Blockbuster went out of business did you see a video store open up in your hometown and Blockbuster would put their store right next to it? This has happened. This is what business does. This is nothing new. This isn't like, oh my goodness, they're trying to stifle their competition. Really? That's the first time that's ever happened in the history of the world, was that you were worried about your competition enough that you were going to try to stifle them. And so this is such bullshit. I love it. I think it's great business. I think it's fun. I was there for the whole Monday Night War. I was there from the beginning to the end and all that. They don't have Eric Bischoff. I'm not taking a shot at Mr. Tony Khan down there. Not at all. I've only met him once. Don't know him. Wish no ill will. But Bischoff was a game opponent, man. We didn't see that coming, and that's a lesson for people. By the way, if you'd have told us in 92, 93 that WCW was going to beat us for 83 weeks and they have a chance of putting us out of business, there's not a soul in our dressing room or their dressing room that would have believed that. And along comes Eric Bischoff, and that changed freaking everything. That guy did one of the biggest corporate turnarounds in the history of corporate turnarounds. It's legendary what that man did. Don't know if that could happen now. We didn't see it then. Now, it didn't happen before that. It hadn't happened since. Eric's a once-in-a-generation guy, but you never know. But that's why you fight competition. That's why you have good business practice. This isn't predatory business practice. This is business practice. And there's a big freaking difference. I mean, it's, brother, you're messing with guys that are alpha males. And not that Tony Khan is not, but these guys they're going to protect their business. And they should. I'm a shareholder, by the way, in TKO, not a big one, not even one that's big enough to be registered. But I bought stock in it because I think it's one of the best entertainment companies in the world. That's why I bought stock in it. I'm proud as a shareholder that they're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, every time you turn around, it's another headline of success for WWE. And the latest is not only might they be doing this PLE on September 20th, not only might they hold off and headline John Cena and Brock Lesnar on that same day, but it might perhaps be the first show on ESPN, which would be monstrous. I think a lot of us expected the ESPN deal to start next year. But if we're talking about a month from now, John, we might be watching John Cena and Brock Lesnar on ESPN. What a freaking way for John Cena. I mean, what a feather in the cap for him on his farewell tour. You want to talk about getting the word out. Hey, you can see John Cena in one of his last matches on ESPN. That'll be huge, John.
Huge. And if you want to get Brock off his ranch, you get him, get him to quit hunting animals. He might be hunting people too. He is Brock. He thought if the aliens invade us, we're going to send Brock out there. That'll stop that shit right away. You boys will go back to Mars. But this will get Brock off his ranch. I mean, this is a huge deal. You know, Brock's one of the biggest draws in pay-per-view history, both in MMA and in professional wrestling. To be the headline of this ESPN deal. I mean, again, this is what TKO does well. I mean, this freaking UFC deal is huge. I mean, these guys are just, I mean, they are killing it right now. It is like every single week you see a new press release like, oh, we've got a new multi-billion-dollar deal somewhere. I mean, good Lord, man. What a great time to be in the wrestling business. Or what a great time to be a wrestling fan.
It's going to be big. I can't wait to see what happens. I mean, I think we all know just the mass appeal that John Cena has and that Brock Lesnar has. If they wind up putting that on ESPN, I feel like it's going to be gangbusters for WWE, for ESPN, and for wrestling at large. Like, these are the type of events, if that really happens, we'll look back one day and say, man, the second boom, the next level explosion, whatever's coming, started with John Cena and Brock Lesnar on ESPN. I talked about that last week with Jeff. We think, John, and I want your opinion, that this WWE ESPN opportunity might be the biggest deal in wrestling history. Don't you think?
100%. My God, yes. And you talk about airport appeal, Brock Lesnar and John Cena. I mean, my God, man, if you're flipping through the ESPN or you're going through your app like everybody does that's a sport fan like me, and all of a sudden you see this freaking Brock and he still looks as good as he ever looked. Cena still got this incredible body, one of the greatest of all time. And all of a sudden you look at the guy, oh my God, these guys are wrestling? I mean, this is that airport appeal that you talked about. Like, oh my God, talk about a hook. You couldn't have two better guys to do this if that is indeed what it is. And I think that ESPN, look, we didn't have ESPN cover us. I mean, they wouldn't, I was there when they first started covering us just a little bit. Then they realized how big wrestling was. Now you've got now you got to deal with ESPN. I mean, this is huge. I mean, absolutely huge. ESPN gets it. And it's such a dynamic shift from where we were just 25 years ago when sports were sports, and they wouldn't cover sports entertainment. Now you realize that everything's sports entertainment, which, by the way, I've always said, Michael Jordan, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, arguably the greatest of all time, Chicago Bulls, and especially in the two three-peats, probably the greatest runs of all time, greatest teams of all time. Certainly could argue Bill Russell's Celtics and, maybe Steph Curry's Warriors later. But there's some teams you could argue about it, but arguably the greatest. They didn't just come out to introductions. They came out to laser light shows and smoke, all the different stuff. Anybody who didn't need that was Michael Jordan. So all these sports purists that would say, oh, we don't need that shit, man. That's WWE stuff. They all do it now because they understand it's sports entertainment. And that's where ESPN has gotten now. And I agree with you. I think it could be the biggest deal in wrestling history. I
can't wait for us to break that down. I do want to I do want to talk a little bit about CM Punk, but before we do, this ESPN thing, I think it doesn't go official until April of next year. So this would be John Cena's last chance, but it would give something for ESPN to really hype and promote and talk about, which would be huge for WWE, huge for Brock Lesnar, and most of all, huge for John Cena. So I, for one, hope it happens. I hope there's smoke behind this fire, and we do see John Cena on ESPN for the first time, for the last time. That'd be really cool, man.
That'd be really cool. And I nicknamed him Big Match John. I got after Big Match Rob, Big Shot Rob. Rob Ory was the guy, hit like 5 or 6, game-winning shots in big games. And, at the time, Rob Ory was not a guy who played a lot of minutes, especially later in his career. I remember they put him out there one time and just said, shoot the ball. And you put out a guy named Big Shot Rob, and you don't guard him, and he hits the freaking 2-point or 3-point, whatever it is, and wins the game. That's where I got the idea for Big Match John. Brock's the same way. These are prime time performers. And if you want somebody to perform at a level that matches the hype that goes with it, these are your two guys. And I think if you're going to do it, these are the two guys to do it with.
Hey, something I want to give everybody a heads up about is I've started getting some random text messages where it looks like I have to pay some sort of toll violation. It turns out it's a scam. Now, you might not always know that it's a scam. You need somebody looking out for you. You need a built-in card security that keeps your money safe and protects you when you really need it and when you least expect it. I'm talking about Cash App. And when it comes to your money, you deserve to feel safe from fraud and in control. That's exactly what you'll get every time with Cash App. When you get the Cash App card, not only do you get access to a ton of perks and benefits like exclusive early access to nationwide concert pre-sales or discounts on popular brands, but you also have extra security with the power to instantly lock or unlock your card right from your phone in just one tap. And by the way, if a suspicious transaction pops up on your card, Cash App has your back by automatically declining the purchase and then sending you a heads up to confirm whether it's you or not. And behind the scenes, you can rest assured knowing your account balance is protected by 24/7 fraud monitoring. And if something ever feels off, well, you have the ability to lock your card right from your phone in just one tap. With Cash App, you can spend, save, and live your life knowing your money is right where you left it with advanced built-in security, protections you can count on, and help when you really need it. Spend with peace of mind today and order a Cash App card in the app or at cash.app/card. Seriously, I'm a big believer in this product. I know you will be too. The Cash App always requires a successful Face ID or some sort of biometric authentication so you can make sure that your money's protected. Think of Cash App as like your Kevin Nash. He's your Diesel. This is your own personal bodyguard. You don't want to be the heartbreak kid because somebody stole your doggone money. You won't be with Cash App. If something looks suspicious, if Cash App notices something that looks a bit off, they let you know in real time right then. You're on top of it thanks to Cash App. And for a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash for real. Just go download Cash App, use our exclusive referral code WRESTLE in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Instant discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.apps/legal/podcast for full disclosures. So our topic today is
Conrad, before we do right quick, I want to throw something out here because they made such a cool jersey for me and Ron. But the
oh wow,
the APA jersey and part of the Juggalos.
Wow, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I did the gathering this past weekend. You ain't lived till you've been to a gathering. I thought I'd been to a lot of crazy stuff in my life. Unbelievable. Ron and I had such a good time. Violent J, he loves wrestling, does a great job with Juggalo Championship Wrestling. They had JCW versus GCW, the 2-day war. It was so much fun. Violent J is he's a good dude, man. Just a terrific guy. I think he's doing a great job with the wrestling. And he's a huge Bigfoot guy, by the way. We got a Bigfoot show coming up on Briscoe and Bradshaw coming up. We're going to try to get Violent J to come on with us because he's a huge Bigfoot guy. But a lot of fun out there with the Juggalos. And if you've never been to a gathering, I asked him how many people. Somebody said 10,000. Somebody said 20. They think it's closer to 20. I have no idea. You have people, guessing numbers, but a lot of people out there.
I just have a hard time imagining Ron Simmons at a gathering.
Red Conrad, we got out. We're in Thornville, Ohio. We got some guy there that I swear to you, I thought he walked off the set of Deliverance. The security guy, not one of the guys that's part of the Juggalos. He's a security guy. And he was like trying to tell us that I speak redneck fluently. I had no idea what this man said. And he's trying to give us directions. We get there and we get out and we're like seeing some of the wildest parts of the gathering at the very beginning. And I told Ron, I said, Ron, when you and I have been in some crazy places, this may be the craziest. Ron goes, yeah, this is it. Conrad, it was awesome. You could not ask for a nicer group of people. There's no fights at these gatherings. This is not like a redneck convention, where guys are drinking and fighting, guns come out. It's more of like Woodstock, it's more of just, the modern day hippies. I don't know if they want to be called that. I have no idea what they want to be called. They're Juggalos and they're fun. They just sit around and have fun. There's no fights. There's nobody mad at each other. It's just guys out there in the wilderness listening to music and having a great time. It's a lot of fun. I'm telling you, anybody out there listening, you've got to go to a gathering at some point with Insane Clown Posse and the Juggalos at some point. It's fun.
I can't wait to see footage of this. I got to go out of my way to find it. Our topic today is going to be CM Punk. And I have to admit, he was first on my radar through Ring of Honor. And my friend of mine had a DVD, and he said, hey, man, you got to see this promo. And it was a pretty famous promo as far as CM Punk Ring of Honor promos go. He's at the base of a staircase cutting a promo on Raven and drawing correlations between his own relationship with his alcoholic father and Raven and his career. And it was just a phenomenal promo. And I thought, hey, man, whatever it is, that guy's got it. He was on my radar, and I'll call that 03, maybe 04. We know he's going to sign with WWE in 05 and go down to OVW. His independent stuff, was that on your radar at all? I mean, you're making towns all over the world. Are you able to keep up with what's happening on the independents, or do you even care when you're on the main roster back then?
I do care because I care what's coming up. And I say care what's coming up, somebody's going to take my spot. I was older at the time, somebody took my spot, I just retire. It wasn't like I was 24 years old trying to hold on to a spot. I was 40 years old trying to hang on just to life. And so you look for guys that are coming up because you want to work with them. When you got great talent that comes into a territory, guys are lining up. And you may have some guys that are trying to block them for different reasons. I was never one of those guys. I didn't care. I always thought there's an opportunity here. I'd like to work with the guy if they're really talented. Our girl, because you certainly had opportunities to, to work in different factions and groups and things with both genders. But so when talent came up, you wanted to be a part of it. And so, yes, I was very interested. But for a reason that was very positive, and also a potential reason of, perhaps I can work with this person, but I didn't see a lot of it. I was never a tape trader or anything. I was always working, we were on the road all the time. And so, back in the day when I was off, I wanted to go golf and drink beer. So it wasn't like I spent time on the internet.
Were you able to see, or were you hearing at all about the matches that like CM Punk and Samoa Joe were having in 04? They were getting rave reviews in the newsletters, and people were saying these are match of the year candidates. And it was really rare in that day, but they would go 60 minutes. They would have really long matches, and that was kind of unusual. Was any of that on your radar?
Sure, it was. Yeah, and it wasn't because I read the dirt sheets. I told you I never did. I see now when you send me some of the notes from back in the day why I didn't. I wasn't very that. I didn't realize I wasn't so well liked. People that's a surprise to you. Shame on me. But you hear about stuff like that. You hear about great things that are happening. Guy goes an hour and it's a hell of a match. That's a big deal. That's a real big freaking. Not many guys can do that. And we have a lot of respect for that. And so when you hear that, somebody will say, "Hey, man, these two guys went out there and did this." Like, that's pretty freaking cool. nowadays it may be, hey, they jumped off a building, and that was, I don't know how you get noticed in, independence, but back then you got noticed by work. And sure. And I heard a lot of this. I don't know how much of it I saw. You see clips here and there, but it wasn't like we had Twitter back then, or X now, but where you could see highlights and videos. You couldn't really see that stuff very easy.
I do want to talk to you a little bit about the way independent guys were perceived. There was certainly a perception from the outside looking in this era of WWE. We'll call it mid 2000s. So a 3, 04, 05, 06, whatever you want to call it, somewhere in there. There was a perception that if you didn't come through WWE developmental and we didn't train you to work our way, and you're coming in from the independents, then you really don't know how to work. It was almost their previous independent wrestling experience was discounted. Now we would see, John, it feels like that attitude changed a little bit when the company started to sign guys like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and others, guys who were well-established indie guys, and respectfully, for a variety of reasons, didn't seem like they checked all the boxes that WWE normally looked for. So I wanted to know from your perspective, do you remember there being, we'll call it an anti-independent bias once upon a time in WWE? Or is that all just internet narrative?
All internet narrative, 100%. Okay. I think it's all. I don't agree with any of that. In fact, we thought just the opposite. So not only internet is, I don't think that's true. I think it's 180 degrees diametrically opposed to what we thought. I mean, we thought completely the different way. If a guy had worked in Japan or girl. There weren't a lot of great, there weren't a lot of women workers back then. So when I say guy, I mean pretty much in a gender neutral idea, but for the most part, it was just guys. And if a guy had worked in Japan or Europe, or a guy had worked a lot in Mexico and it was a big star, or Puerto Rico, or anywhere was a big star, it's hard to get over. And if you're a big star somewhere, we'd hear about you. I mean, that's pretty cool. Maybe we can get that guy to come here. Maybe we can work with them and do something with them. They'd help you draw money. We thought more of that than a person that had just come out of college and was a great wrestler or a great football player or basketball player and had gone into developmental and hadn't worked anywhere, but had been trained obviously very well by our developmental, but hadn't worked anywhere. We thought just the opposite. We thought much more of the guys who had been working on independence and, going up and down the roads, just like we did, than the guys who just came through and went straight to developmental.
What's interesting is, depending on who you believe and what type of wrestling you like and where your fandom lands, you'll have a different opinion on this. But there's a pretty famous narrative out there that you may not even know about, John. But when CM Punk first signs with WWE, they bring him up and have him do a heat taping, and he's going to come out with Mickie James, and they try this presentation and they decide, hey, we don't really like this. We're going to send him to OVW for 9 months. But that's what it looks like as you see the pairing of Mickie James and CM Punk. This is on the main roster at a heat taping. And this becomes the stuff of legend, especially with the benefit of hindsight. Now, of course, we know that everybody gets along great, but certainly Punk is the young guy who has a chip on his shoulder. Shawn Michaels and Triple H are the top dogs in WWE. And allegedly, what was reported at the time is that Triple H and Shawn watched his match at the monitor and were burying him, accusing him of simulating matches and, quote unquote, not knowing how to work. Now, there's other versions about this that suggest that Shawn was a lot less abrasive about it, but the narrative at the time was, boy, the internet wrestling community had decided we hate Triple H and he can do no good. Now, that has obviously gone back and forth through the years, but I even think about, this is a guy who was 20 years ago, of course, a veteran, a former world champion, a Hall of Famer at that point if he never did anything else. Those guys are going to be able to poke holes in a young guy's game. I mean, that's not uncommon. Like, that's just the way the business has always been. But I think because he being CM Punk was maybe the internet darling is the phrase people were using at the time. And Triple H and Shawn Michaels were the establishment. I can see how they might take it personally too, if they were to be like, wait a minute, the internet thinks this guy is better than us. So maybe they took that as an attack. Either way, this is all silliness. They've all squashed it a long time ago. But where do you think, if those reports are true, that comes from? I don't think it comes automatically from a place of, oh, they hate this guy and they're trying to hold him down. It's, no, hey, man, this guy's got to get better. That doesn't mean that he can't get better or he's not coachable or not teachable. It just means they see things as a veteran that he has not yet developed as a performer. That's not an offensive thing to me. I don't know why everyone took such great offense to it. What say you, John?
Yeah, and I want to know who it came from, not where it came from. I mean, this is such bullshit.
Yes.
I mean, you got Sean and Hunter watching a monitor backstage with WWE. How many people do you think are around them where they can hear what they're saying?
Right.
Think about the logistics of this, about what's being reported. Oh, Hunter and Sean were sitting around at the monitor. Now, who was around them? Who was around them? Most of the time, it's just their inner circle or just the boys. You obviously had you had some internet reporter that was there with them. Now, I don't doubt that somebody could have heard it and stooged it. And obviously, if it got repeated, it got stooged by somebody that was standing there with them. Yeah. So you got a stooge that's standing there with them that has a direct line to Dave Meltzer. Maybe that's true. I just find it highly implausible that that's true, that something like that happened. And that you have the live almost reports of Sean and Hunter at a monitor backstage. You know, a few people sit around those monitors and you got somebody reporting what they're saying. I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think there's much veracity to that. I don't doubt some things were said. But to the second point, Conrad, to your point, which I think is excellent, is we used to sit backstage and make fun of every single match that was in the ring. Every single match. We'd make fun of Stone Cold. We'd laugh about when he'd potato somebody, when he'd trip or something, and we'd just bash him like he's the worst wrestler in the history of the world. I remember we're backstage one time, and we're sitting out there, and we're all in Europe. We're in Europe, and you got like 15 of the boys all sitting there because we're trying to look through a little curtain, so all the boys are sitting there looking, and the guys are just making fun of everything that's in the ring. Everything that's in the ring, one match after another. And one of the guys said, you know what's funny is some guys, when you go to the ring, think you aren't being made fun of. And that's true. But that's what guys did. We sit there and pick people apart. That's just wrestling. That's Conrad. That's just dudes. That's just guys sitting there. You know, what are we going to do? We're sitting backstage. We're bored. We got nothing to do. We've been on the road for 20 days. We're going to sit there and go, man, he looks great in his trunks, and he looks like he's getting in shape, and man, his boots look great. They're nice and shiny. What, are you gonna say that, or are you gonna say, oh my God, what a horrible backdrop? He almost killed himself. That's a shit, and make it out to be the worst thing that's ever happened. That happens all the time. I don't doubt that happened. I just doubt that somebody is sitting there stooging it to the dirt sheets so quick and so fast that somebody's taking that as they're saying something that's so horrible about them that they're burying this guy that's coming in.
I mean, that's the thing, is I feel like whoever reported this just doesn't know how people in that world talk.
Oh my God. You have so many things reported from different guys. Guys, Conrad, you're a guy. And I mean that not just in like, oh, surprising. Conrad's a man. You're just a dude, you know, and I mean that like, some guys are just dudes, and you understand this, and you understand when guys are sitting there bullshitting with each other, making fun of each other, calling each other every name in the book, and yes. You're on the outside. If you hear this, if you're some little snowflake and you hear this, go, man, I heard him call him a really bad name. Really? Have you heard the way we talk to each other? I mean, Conrad, you're like everybody else. You've got some text thread probably out there that you have that you get canceled for immediately because you're with your old buddies. You're like sending stuff to them that is so inappropriate, and you just make fun of them. Just make fun of them and pick on each other and call each other all kinds of names. And if somebody's on the outside saw, they go, man, they really are mean. They hate each other. No, we don't. We're dudes.
I was going to say, I've been fortunate enough to watch wrestling with a couple of other wrestlers. And if they know one of the guys in the ring, the entire time from the minute he comes through the curtain until he goes back, it's a nonstop burial session. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that these guys were really close friends with CM Punk. I am just saying, if they're friends, they're trying to make the other laugh, and they're going to be as negative.
Well, let me tell you a quick. I'm sorry, Kyle. I'm going to cut you off. Let me tell you a quick story. So we're watching Ricky Morton. We're down in Mississippi, some little small town. Me and Ron are down there. You know, and listen, I love Ricky like a brother. He is a friend of mine. I love him. Ron and I are sitting there, and Ricky, we're in a small crowd. We're going. Look at Ricky. He's working like Andre the Giant. he's going to a knee. We're doing commentary on it. You know, he's not going to take like a bunch of bumps, you know, because, you know, Ricky, God bless him, you know, he's been in 50,000 matches, and this is like in front of a few hundred people. And so we're watching Ricky. Me and Ron love Ricky. We're calling the whole thing like he's Andre the Giant. He's going to a knee. We think he's going down. If you'd have heard us, you'd have said, these guys are really horrible people. Talking about me and Ron. We come back and we told Ricky everything we said. He thought it was funny. You know, it's just, this is what guys do.
Well, let me ask you about the relationship between talent and someone behind the scenes, because I feel like when CM Punk winds up not going to the main roster and first going to OVW, a lot of people would see this as a setback. But this, I believe, is actually the thing that makes CM Punk successful in WWE long term, because he doesn't flounder or try to find his place or his voice on the main roster. He's immediately going to OVW, and he's going to hook up with Paul Heyman. Now, Ring of Honor was booked by a guy named Gabe Sapolsky, one of the genius bookers of all the original OG success that Ring of Honor experienced. And we know that Gabe was sort of the right-hand man of Paul Heyman. So he was under, you know, Paul Heyman's, he's like his assistant booker, if you will. He's taking notes. He's learning from what Paul Heyman is doing when he's running ECW. So now you have basically a Paul disciple who's pushing Punk for Ring of Honor. And now when all of a sudden Punk finds himself in OVW, Paul Heyman's there. Like, the timing could not have been better. Immediately they hit it off, and he being Paul Heyman, invites Punk to come in and see how the shows are edited and put together. So it expands his knowledge base, and he gets a real relationship. And really, pardon the pun of what he says on TV, Paul Heyman becomes a real life advocate for CM Punk. So when the ECW reunion becomes a successful concept with One Night Stand in 05, they decide to bring it back and launch their own brand in 06. Heyman is going to be leading creative, so of course he wants to bring CM Punk with him. Now, I know how we all feel with the benefit of hindsight about WWE ECW, but these two guys getting together so early in his WWE experience, I think laid the groundwork in a lot of ways for him to have someone campaigning for him, and you would think that's a positive. But I've heard sometimes it can be a negative in Vince McMahon's WWE if someone was advocating for you too hard. Yeah. What can you tell us about that Heyman-Punk relationship? And is it true that if someone was really pushing for you too much, Vince hated that and would push against it just on principle?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first deal with Paul Heyman. You know, the same thing happened with Stone Cold. You know, Steve was, my God, man, when he was with the Hollywood Blondes, he one of the best workers I've ever seen. And he was still a great worker as Stone Cold, but he had some injuries then. He was probably a better worker as with Pillman than he was later as Stone Cold. And I said better worker. He could do more stuff. He could do more things, you know, because he wasn't as injured. And later, of course, you know, maybe the greatest worker of all time, you know, and which is different from just putting together, be able to do a lot of stuff that he could do earlier with Brian. But when you talk about just wrestling ability, he was at his peak with Pillman. But then when he got with ECW, that's where he found his voice. You know, Paul Heyman helped Steve found his voice. Those promos he cut in ECW were freaking amazing. Ron Simmons cut some great promos in ECW. Paul Heyman has a history of bringing out characters. And he did this, I think, for CM Punk. And so I think it was huge for CM Punk. I think Paul Heyman deserves a lot of credit for this. And as far as advocates, I've been on the plane with Vince many, many times. And you know, it depends on who it is. You know, he respected Heyman, and it's different when it's Paul. There were other people that Vince, oh my God, I remember pitching something to him one time, and somebody came by and agreed with me. And as soon as he did, you could see Vince shut off. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. I had him sold on it. And because Vince, the guy had no idea, Vince didn't like him. And when he agreed with me, Vince was like, you can see Vince just kind of shut down. I'm like, oh God. Get him another glass of wine. I'm leaving.
Hey, I do want to ask you about somebody in particular since we're talking about this. I talked to Arn years ago. This is back when Luke Harper was still with us. We know that, you know, he had a whole nother run in AEW as Brody Lee, but Luke Harper was the WWE name. And I know that Arn was really big on him and said, man, this guy can put together moves and combinations of moves and matches. Arn was a big advocate for him back when Arn was an agent. But I've heard through the grapevine that anytime, there would be some sort of a brainstorming session, Arn would throw his hand up and say, "What about Luke Harper?" And allegedly he did it enough that it almost became a gag where they went the other way. And then it became a point of, I'm not going to do it just to piss Arn off. Now, Arn didn't tell me that, but other people have. And I thought, man, I know that Vince had like a quirky sense of humor and he would certainly like to needle and poke. But now we're not just messing with Arn, we're kind of messing with Luke Harper's career. Do you think that is real or is that just nonsense?
That's collateral damage. Yeah. Shit happens. Yes, I'm not aware of that specific instance, but I've seen it. That was Pat with Dolph. Pat thought Dolph was the greatest thing ever, and Dolph is the greatest thing ever, still is. But Vince and Pat had this crazy, wild friendship relationship that a lot of times, Pat would say, "Hey, we can put Dolph in there," and it became so much that Pat was such an advocate for Dolph that Vince sometimes would put Dolph in stuff just to mess with Pat, and of course Dolph would make it look great, but that was part of it. Vince had this crazy sense of humor. He loved to entertain himself, and he was very entertaining. I'm not bashing him for that. It's just like, what would you do if you owned the company? You'd entertain yourself too.
I 100% would, but I just think it's funny that then it became, I'm going to mess with this agent who's not on TV.
That's right.
And busted
just so he can watch him sell. That's what it was. Just so he can watch him sell. That's what it was.
So I'm not going to feature this guy on TV just so I can watch this guy stomp around in the backstage area. It's like,
I'm going to do something detrimental to my company just so I can mess with this agent who's not on TV so I can watch him sell.
Is this what happens when you're a bored billionaire? You just,
I think so. I hope, Conrad, I hope one day I'm a bored billionaire and I hope somebody's doing a podcast about me.
And I hope I'm the guy you keep around just to make fun of.
Absolutely.
By the way, I want to tell you, Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers make a profit off your data. Your data is a commodity, and anyone on the web can buy your private details. This, of course, can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and even harassment. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. I can't believe this is real, but data brokers actually have your name, your contact info, your social security number, your home address, even information about your family members can all be compiled by these data brokers and then sold online. And I have seen countless people who've been victims of identity theft. I actually just talked to somebody last week who was trying to buy a house with me, and well, they couldn't. They didn't realize that their identity had been stolen. So there's a whole nother piece of this level of inconvenience. And I mean, it's illegal, sure, but it's also a real threat, and Delete Me can help. We want you to take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. And now we've got a special discount for our listeners. You can get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/wrestle and use the promo code wrestle at checkout. That's the only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/wrestle and enter the code wrestle at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/wrestle and the promo code is wrestle.
Hey, Conrad, I'll tell you one thing about the bored billionaire. When they thought he might be going to prison during the early 90s, he had a bet with Taker over a football game. And this is right in the middle of the time where he's like in court every day and all this stuff. And he loses the bet. I don't remember what it was. It may have been $50, $250. It was, not a huge amount of money, but it was, several $100s, whatever it was. He had sent to the building in pennies the entire amount to Taker. So like whatever it was. Oh, it was $50, $200, whatever it was. He had them sent in pennies. Had called a bank, found a way to get all that money in pennies, had somebody deliver it to the building. This is right when he's on the precipice of either going to jail and losing his freedom for the rest of his life, or maybe not. And this is what he thought of doing.
My God.
He is, I'm telling you, when I tell you he's the most unique guy, and I mean that in a great way. Vince was fun to be around.
Let's talk about CM Punk. He's going to become the top babyface in ECW in like mid 2007. And we know he's going to have a babyface feud with Chris Benoit that doesn't have an ending for obvious reasons. But eventually we start to see Punk make his way over to the main roster, including winning Money in the Bank. at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando. This, of course, is the Ric Flair retirement WrestleMania. But he's going to get moved to the Raw brand in 2008. Now, as a reminder, up to this point, there's only been 2 years of Money in the Bank, and both times Edge cashed in to win the title in a very opportunistic, heelish way. Well, now we've got a babyface champion, or a babyface guy with the case, and Edge is the world champion on Raw. And so this is where we get one of the better Raw shows of the year, according to Dave Meltzer. It's June 30th in Oklahoma City. And Meltzer would say it was focused on making new stars, and in doing so, sometimes you have to sacrifice short-term ratings. But in this case, the ratings were the highest for a Raw show since Ric Flair retired. There's no Shawn Michaels and there's no Triple H. And Punk's title win is a major focal point on the show. This is the era where Edge has Hawkins and Ryder come out with him. And Dave is very complimentary, saying that Edge is a magnificent asshole here, and he's not funny. He's just doing his job as a heel. And eventually we see Hawkins and Ryder escort Ross out, which is the key because now they're gone. When Batista comes out and he attacks Edge, he's going to ram Edge's shoulder into the post, give him a Batista bomb in the ring, and Punk comes out and cashes in his Money in the Bank using the go to sleep. It takes all of 8 seconds. Huge pop for this, and it's a big moment. Meltzer would say it was a great 30 minutes, and normally a babyface fluking into a world title win isn't the best way to go. But since Edge has won the world title twice this way, it's a taste of his own medicine, so it works as a story. I love this moment. Not a lot of people talk about this era of WWE, but that was a really cool moment and cool execution. What did you think at the time?
I thought Edge was a great heel. I mean,
Yes.
An unbelievable world-class heel. I mean, we talk about great heels of all time. Edge is one of them. I mean, he was so freaking good. He was so good at what he did. He had an idea of being a heel. Edge is a very smart guy, as nearly everybody knows by now. But man, he was so good at being a heel. And so this had so much to do with Edge. It also had to do with the underdog of CM Punk. I think the story's great. You've got this straight edge. I guess he's already straight edge at the time, but you already got this straight edge underdog against this terrific heel with this cabinet or faction, whatever you want to call around him. And all of a sudden he cashes in this Money in the Bank in a similar way that Edge had done it before. I thought the whole thing was incredibly well done. And one of the reasons it was so well done, the story was well written, but it was done by terrific performers in CM Punk and Edge.
Well, we know that's how they start the show. But later that night, and this is June 30th, 2008, you actually face CM Punk for the first time at the Ford Center here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. You're going to call him out. You're going to get a world title shot. And I think a lot of people expected, this was probably just a way to transition. Look at you with your rolly like you like it. This is
yes, sir.
A nice way to transition from one heel champ to another. But that's not what happened. You put him over. Punk retained. What do you remember about being in the ring with CM Punk the very first time?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. And I knew what my role was. CM Punk had just won this title. And you won the title in, it wasn't a fluke way, but you could say it was because there's a cash in the Money Bank. So you don't have a lot of credibility behind the champion. So you got to figure out a way to get him that. You got to get some equity in this champion, other than just he cashed in and got a little bit lucky. And so you put him out there with an old champion and beat him. So that was my role. And I loved it. Thought it was great.
What do you think of Punk's style? A lot was made about him not working a WWE style, similar to the same thing we heard about Chris Jericho when he first came over from WCW. And Jericho actually wrote about that in his book a lot, where he felt like by the time he got to WWE, he knew how to be a great professional wrestler. He had a lot of pride in his work. But he felt like when he got to WWE, it was almost like he was starting over because it was a different style. WWE had a different standard of presentation. The way you never put your back to the hard cam and you work 3 sides and all the other little details that I don't pretend to know. Did you feel like there was any of that with CM Punk, or did it just feel like, hey man, this is business as usual?
No, because I'm as a heel, I'm supposed to lead the match. So if something's going wrong, it's my fault.
Right.
So I didn't think any of that, and WWE does have their own style. You look at that when guys come in, any territory has a different style. And it takes a little while to learn that territory style. You know, you'd go to different territories back in the day, go down to Mexico, go down to Puerto Rico or Japan or Europe. Those are drastically different. Memphis was drastically different from Florida, from Minneapolis, from Texas. And so you had to learn a different style when you got a place. That was not unusual. You know, just because something works somewhere doesn't mean it's going to work there. It may, but odds are, you know, something else is working there. But if you figured something out somewhere else, odds are you probably could figure it out there too. I enjoyed CM Punk. I enjoyed having matches with him. You know, I was a lot bigger, and you know, we always worked pretty snug. Really, he never bitched about nothing. He was just happy to be out there. He worked incredibly hard, and I enjoyed working with him.
We've got a comment here from the Observer back then that says Brian Gewitz in the past has knocked Punk in meetings, and there are Raw veterans who don't like him because, well, you know, the non-drinking is seen as being stuck up by some. But putting the world belt on him puts a lot of pressure on him. It's earlier than they would do it for most, and it's also clear they understand the need for rebuilding. You know, and that's a real issue. I want to talk about that. I know sometimes people say, hey, it's too much too soon. Guys were saying that online about Roman Reigns in the very beginning. In the end, I think it more than worked out. But they were saying, hey, it's too much too soon. They said that back in 97 when they first put the Intercontinental title on Rocky Maivia. Did you feel like this was too much too soon for Punk? And was it too much too soon for the audience, or for too much too soon for the boys?
Randy Orton said that about himself too. You know, it is. I mean, when you get that title, I mean, it's, you know, you don't know what's going to happen, you know, and Randy thought that about himself. I didn't think that about Randy. I thought Randy was ready for it, but obviously he knew in his own heart that, you know, he didn't feel like he was at the level he was later. And I think he looked back and thought it was too soon. So Randy wrote that, you know, or said that about himself. That can happen to a lot of people. You don't know until they get the title. You have no idea. None. I mean, you look at people that get titles, and some people grow in the title, and some people shrink with the title, and they almost it engulfs them. You don't know what's going to happen until they get it. I mean, it's literally a case by case basis. You know, if it's a cookie cutter formula, it'd be so much easier. Like bring a guy in and give him the Intercontinental title, work him in so many pay-per-views, do this, do that, and then end up with the world title. And, you know, if you did that, that's pretty much the formula. But that doesn't work. Everybody's different, and everybody responds to a title different. So I didn't think it was too early. I had no idea. I'd seen enough guys get titles that all of a sudden grow in those titles and become this great champion. And I've seen guys get titles that shrunk from it. And so I had no judgment either way.
Let's talk about, you know, this narrative. You know, as you mentioned, CM Punk has been doing promos on the indies for a long, long time about being straight edge. He's got the tattoo. He's got a Pepsi tattoo in the same way that a lot of guys get some sort of beer or liquor tattoo. So I appreciated the straight edge approach to life, but also as a presentation for a character, because it was different then. But I know that, you know, there was a expectation that the business is done in the bar, and there becomes a peer pressure thing where you got to go drinking with the guys, and occasionally you're going to have to pick up a tab, and, you know, we're going to need to see you gargle the Jack Daniels. There is a drinking culture that has existed in wrestling for a long time. I don't know that it's as prominent now as it once was. When Punk is first sort of rising to fame here, we'll call it 07, 08. Do you remember that drinking pressure existing, or was that all just for story? Was it not really even a thing by then?
No, all story. You know, you'd have to ask Punk if there was people that pressured him. I certainly don't think I did. I didn't care if he might drink or not. I drank. More for me. You know, it wasn't. You know, I did promos about your straight edge. You don't drink. You don't do this. That means you're boring. You know, we'd laugh about. He'd do things about me about drinking. You know, those were promos. That wasn't us bashing each other backstage. That was stuff we did on camera. And people would conflate that and say, oh, JBL doesn't like him because he doesn't drink. I could care less if he drank. It makes no difference to me. You know, and I don't think there was I was there. There was no problem with Punk backstage that he didn't drink. That was his prerogative. You know, different guys did different things. And I've heard that narrative before, that there was a problem because he was straight edge. I never heard any of that. Not one iota of that backstage. Now, Punk may have got some feedback that I don't know about, but from the guys I was around, and I was around all the drinkers, we didn't care if he drank or not. We cared what he did in the ring. You know, we went out on our own. We had fun. If he wanted to come, he could come. He didn't have to. He certainly didn't have to drink. You can't hardly make a guy drink unless you hold him down. Which, you know, to me it wasn't a big deal. I think it was something was made of it because what we said on air, and people conflated that to real life, which you can't do.
I wanted to mention too, I think, because here's what always jumped off the page to me. Dave Meltzer wrote, the non-drinking is seen as being stuck up by some. I would argue that's not a complete sentence or thought. I'm not picking on Dave. I'm just saying you're not stuck up because you don't drink. You're stuck up because you won't socialize with us. You're stuck up because you think you're too good to come sit with us and converse and get to know us and develop a relationship. Like, it comes off as stuck up because you're standoffish. But if you're CM Punk, you're standoffish because you don't want to be around alcohol, not because you don't want to be around the guys. But I could see how when alcohol's involved, we could conflate the two. But it was probably never really about drinking. It was about, man, damn, I thought we were doing business together. Now you don't want to be our friend. Because if the rest of the crew is hanging out as one big happy merry bunch, granted, they're drinking and you're not. And if you've never done that, being the only sober person in a room full of people drinking, not the most fun in the world. So I get that. But that's what I think it is. When it comes off as stuck up, it's almost because, hey, man, why aren't you hanging out? Why aren't you being our friend? Come hang out at the bar. But if you don't drink, I could see how that would be perceived as a negative, even though that's not the intent.
A couple of things here. One, drunks are idiots.
Yes.
I mean, drunk people are horrible to be around. I don't want to be around a bunch of drunk people if I'm not drinking. If I'm drunk with them, that's one thing. But if you're not drinking, that's miserable being around a bunch of drunks.
Yes.
They're idiots. You know, they're all over dramatic. They get mad for no reason. They love you for no reason. I mean, I don't want to be around a bunch of drunks if you're not drinking. Guys are buffoons. I mean, guys are idiots when they drink. They're freaking like 8-year-old kids with, you know, in 40-year-old bodies. I could, but I've been around CM Punk when we were on buses and guys were, you know, drinking and he's on the bus. He interacts with everybody. I mean, there was no issue. I don't know where Meltzer got all this crap. And certainly I was there. I didn't see any of that. There may be some validity to it. I don't know, but I didn't see any of that. And I agree with you about there's a problem if you know you're acting stuck up. Punk didn't act stuck up. He didn't act like he was better than anybody. He just didn't drink, and I don't think anybody cared. I've been around Punk when we were overseas, and you know guys that tend to drink a lot overseas. Punk was there hanging out with everybody. But if I'm not drinking, I don't want to be around a bunch of drunks. I know what drunks are like. They're not fun to be around if you're sober. So I don't think anybody blamed him if he wanted to leave.
Well, you're going to be the first in line opponent for CM Punk at SummerSlam. You guys are going to be the fourth match for the world title. You're going to get 11 minutes in the match, but it's the promo that happens on the way here in Richmond that gets everybody talking. You're going to call out Punk for a contest where he has no chance to win. You're going to cut a good promo. You're going to refer to Punk as being Cinderella, saying he lucked into a glass slipper. You're going to start calling him Cindy for short. And you're going to talk about how people like yourself built the business. And we're trying to pass it to people like you. So if you want to be a great champion, I'm not going to compromise on what a champion should be. And you pull out the bottle of Jack Daniels. And you're basically saying, if you'll drink this, then you'll prove that you're a real champion. And of course, as you may imagine, Punk throws the drink at you, gives you the running knee in the corner. And Meltzer would say, good segment, but a bad direction for Punk until he goes heel. Unless the idea is to set up the backlash now. I guess this is because a large portion of the audience does drink. What do you think about the creative around this, where it's almost like drinking bad, not drinking good? I could see how that would alienate some audience. But the execution of this was good. I enjoyed the segment, but I guess I never really thought about how people who have an issue or a strong opinion one way or another about alcohol may be influenced by this. What do you think of this angle?
I think if you have a problem with it because there's layers to it, then you're a simpleton. I mean, you want fire bad, water good. You know, you want a cartoon. You want a cartoon where everything is, you know, black and white. You know, okay, this is the bad guy. You got to be the bad guy the whole time. And you're the good guy, so you got to be the good guy the whole time. When there's layers, that's life. You know, that's life. They did the same thing with Jake when he came back and he was sober and King was trying to pour Jack Daniels down him. different dynamic because Jake was a recovering alcoholic and different dynamic, but Punk didn't drink. Same type of thing. I'm just being the heel bully, trying to make him drink because he's not like me. And he's like, oh, you think you're better than me? Blah, 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 blah. I think there's layers to it. And if you're out there and you're one of these fans that says, oh, he doesn't drink, I don't like him. Okay, don't like him. Cheer for me. It's just, you have a right to do whatever you want. There's layers to the story. And I think that's, to me, it expands on Punk's character and what he is for somewhere down the road. And I think you can make a bigger character out of him rather than just being everything's good about him, everything's bad about everybody else. That's cartoons.
We got to talk a little bit about the SummerSlam match. Meltzer would say that you got yourself in much better shape. You had dropped some weight, and the match was better than the previous television match. He says there was one messed up spot where Punk was doing a spin kick that didn't hit well. It landed wrong. And when you take the bump, the back of your head cracks into the back of Punk's head, which split Punk open. And you started shaking your hand like it may have gone numb. But seconds later, this is hilarious. But seconds later, he was pounding on Punk using both arms, so he was fine. I don't know why, but the phrasing for that tickled me. Do you remember this match, and do you remember you guys knocking noggins? What can you tell us about this SummerSlam match with you and CM Punk?
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. I don't remember the match that well. I remember. I'd have to see it. I never watched my matches back hardly, so yeah. We were always going to the next match. So I remember enjoying working with him very much. I remember some specifics. I do remember bashing heads, and I remember being surprised that he bashed open. But I lost all feeling in my arm, and I told him, I think Nick was the referee. I think it may have been Hebner, but I remember telling him I lost all feeling in my left side, and it came back right away. And something happened. I hit a nerve or something, and it just went away right quick. And it wasn't painful. Just I didn't have any feeling.
I want to talk a little bit about what happens in New York City at the end of August. It's August 23rd, 2008. There's a house show at Madison Square Garden. And the main event that night is CM Punk versus JBL in a steel cage match. It goes 22 minutes. This is going to be Punk's first time main eventing the Garden. It's got to be a big deal to him. Do you remember that match? Does that stand out to you? Because I think there was rumor and innuendo that Punk had some sort of crazy spot he wanted to do for his first match. What do you remember about your first time with?
Yeah, I remember very well. I remember going to him, and I didn't know CM Punk that well. He'd come along, and my role was the old guy, trying to give whatever equity I had to him, which I was fine with that because I like him, and I probably would have been fine with it anyway. But it may not have been if I didn't like him. I did like him, but I remember going to him right before, and he told this story in his CAC Hall of Fame speech that I went to him right before, and I did. I said, "Hey, legends are made in the Garden." I said, enjoy all the time you have out there. And I'd always tell guys, before matches, don't just go out there and have the match. We're in the Garden, or SummerSlam or WrestleMania, wherever we were. Look around, take mental pictures of where you are and remember this, because this is something you're going to remember the rest of your life. We're in a sold out Garden. His first big match in the Garden, cage match in the Garden. It doesn't get any better than that, man. I mean, that's the peak of this business. And when you're there for the first time, sometimes it becomes a little bit overwhelming. You just want to get through the match. You want to make sure the match is right. And what I always tell guys, when I talk to guys that are football players or athletes or wrestlers or whatever it are, memorize something from that day. Take some mental pictures, because the rest of your life, when you're old, you're going to look back and you want to remember it. So make sure you look around and go, man, this is cool. I'm freaking in the Garden. Main event, cage match. We're sold out. This is freaking awesome. And I remember talking to him just a little bit beforehand, just real quick beforehand, and telling him, enjoy this time.
Hey, I want to ask you, in your opinion, because you've done it all, like, of the accolades that you can really achieve, the accomplishments you can achieve in WWE, I think most people would agree, hey, being world champ, that's number one. Main eventing WrestleMania, that's 1A. Maybe we'll call it 2. Is main eventing Madison Square Garden number 3?
Holy cow, man. I remember Sarge got up one time and told everybody, he was talking about guys who had drawn money. He was trying to talk to people about stuff. And I remember Sarge sat there and he said, how many of you have main evented a sold out Garden? And there weren't very many. And his point was, hey, I've been there and I've done this. Listen to me for done it, And I remember thinking at that time, man, that's God Almighty, man. To main event the Garden, no matter what, to be in the Garden is freaking amazing. I mean, like we started off the show down in AAA this past week. I said, certain arenas you've got to be in, and that's true. You got to be in Budokan. You got to be in Corcoran. The old days, you had to be in the Sportatorium. You had to be in the Rosemont. Now it's the Staples Center. But the Garden was, man, Bret Hart used to say it may not be sacred, but it may not be holy ground, but it's sacred. And I believe that about the Garden. There's something special about the Garden. You've got to wrestle the Garden. And if you get to main event the Garden, man, buddy, it's one of those boxes you check that you don't even have to tell anybody about it. You don't ever have to bring it up. Guys are talking about wrestling, and, brother, that's pretty freaking cool to be able to say that.
Listen, what John just did is the way the ladies are going to be talking about your dick when you start Blue Chew. Guys, enter the room dick first. Blue Chew isn't just a tablet. It's a cheat code for your crotch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like somebody gave your downstairs a pep talk and a gym membership. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. The last time I took a Blue Chew, my dick got sponsored by an energy drink company and refused to do missionary, saying it was bad for the brand, extreme positions only. Guys, this isn't just about performance. This is about your legacy or your third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use the promo code WRESTLE at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And a big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. So, John, we know that this is a big moment for Punk in his career, main eventing the Garden. It's sold out. You guys get plenty of time, 22 minutes. You're going to have some more matches throughout the rest of the summer, but it's really right before you go to your last WrestleMania in March of 2009, where you meet Punk for the last time. Did you think y'all's chemistry evolved as time went on? Do you have any fond memories or moments of your matches with Punk that you can share with us?
Yeah, I enjoyed him. Punk's a tough guy, and you could tell that right away from it. I had waffle guys pretty good, and I certainly didn't mind being hit back. And Punk would hit me back. It just some guys, you feel right away, or are shrinking violets. You don't know if you get in the ring with them, and it was fun being out there with guys like Punk, because he wanted to wrestle and he wanted to work hard, and he didn't mind mixing it up. I really enjoyed my time with CM Punk. He's told his stories too, but one time, I can't remember the match. We were working with him and Batista. And after the match, this is how much I thought of him. But it's the right thing to do. Also, I didn't think we gave him enough. He went over, I believe it was. And then I came back to the ring. He told the story. He goes, he didn't know if I was coming back to leave because it was not scripted. I just thought it was the right thing to do. I came back and I said, duck the clothesline, hit me to go to sleep. And I wanted to leave myself, him have me laying at the end right in the middle of the ring dead with him standing up. I don't know if he's a champion at that time or not, or whatever it was, had his hand up for certainly. And, that's how much I thought of him. I really enjoyed working with him. It was a lot of fun. He didn't have to call anything. Just had to go out there and work hard. And he was so good about he could do anything. He could do all the moves. He could do anything. And plus all the grappling. Plus he didn't mind mixing it up. It was enjoyable to work with CM Punk. I really enjoyed my time with him.
When, at least in your opinion, when do you think CM Punk cemented himself as a legit top guy? Because they run experiments from time to time, and it doesn't work for some guys. They have a cup of coffee in the big time, as Macho Man might say. Punk becomes a solidified top guy. What's the threshold he had to cross for, at least in your opinion, to become a top guy?
He's had to, walk through hell. So every champion that makes it, that's trying to transcend from where champions are to the different level of champion has to walk through hell. And I thought he did that with some matches. And I thought he did that with this long run that he had. The long run, even though that he didn't get to go to WrestleMania, I thought that long run that he had was really good for him. And I thought that really cemented him a lot. And I think that was one of the big things that helped him. The hiatus obviously helped him tremendously. Me and Ron saw him out in Vegas when he went in the Hall of Fame. I think Ace Steel was the guy that inducted him. And we pulled him aside. First time I'd seen him since he had left. I guess since he left. I think it's right. Yeah. And me and Ron both told him how proud we were of him. And we were man, we were dead serious. Man, it takes balls to do what he did. It takes balls to take time off from a probably 7-figure contract. I assume that's, I'm sure he was. I don't have, contracts are confidential, but I'm sure that's what he's making. And spend a year training and then go out there and fight in the octagon. I mean, that's Gerald Briscoe knows a lot of the guys he trained with. They rave about how hard he worked. I mean, he worked his ass off for that. He went out there and put it all on the line. We sat there and told him how proud we were of him. And we were dead serious. I mean, that to me was really cool what he did. And I think that really helped him as much as anything. Plus kind of being the outsider when he left and, just walked out. That always kind of helps guys if you do it the right way. He kind of came this outlaw. And then he goes into the UFC and makes this big name for himself and has, these fights. I thought that helped him probably the most out of everything that he had done. But I think that long run before that was what really kind of cemented him in the world, before he ended up leaving.
Lots of guys, have had success as both a heel and a babyface, Punk among them. Like even Ric Flair, he was a popular babyface and a popular heel, but I preferred the heel Ric Flair. We've seen Punk do both. Did you like his heel work better or his babyface work better?
I think I liked his babyface work better, because I was wanting somebody to work with, so I enjoyed his babyface run, and I enjoyed the edge on babyfaces. One of the mistakes that people make is when they turn from one to the other, is they change completely. What got you to the dance is who you are. Now you can change somewhat, but Punk stayed true to what CM Punk is, whatever that is. He stayed true to it as a babyface and as a heel. And I thought that was what led to a lot of his success. I think what leads to a lot of people's success. But in my opinion, I enjoyed the babyface CM Punk more.
We know he's going to have an incredible run with the world title with Paul Heyman. He's going to hold that belt for a record number of days. And it was a really fun run that came to a not so pleasant end in early 2014. But back in 2011, on June 27th, man, he set the world on fire sitting on the stage at the Thomas and Mack Center as Monday Night Raw was finishing. To these days, people are still talking about the pipe bomb. It's rare that you do one promo, it gets a nickname, and people are talking about it 15 years later with all this reverence. This has got to be one of the most famous promos in wrestling history. What'd you think of it at the time, John? Do you think WWE got all the mileage they could out of that? And what do you think about that promo with the benefit of hindsight, adding it to the context of most famous wrestling promos in history? Where does it rank for you?
Yeah, and you're probably a better historian of the modern era than I am, that, how this impacted, did WWE take advantage of this as well as they should have? I think they did, but I don't know if I was there or not. I can't remember if I was. I can't remember. I remember watching it. So I don't know if I was there or just watched it on television after I got word of it. And I thought it was fantastic. You had to deliver it. I mean, you had to deliver it. I mean, you've got the whole stage, the whole world in the palm of your hand. I mean, this is, you don't get this very often. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And some guys knock it out of the park. And if this hadn't been knocked out of the park, I don't think anybody would have ever thought, hey, he blew once in a lifetime opportunity, because you don't realize it's a once in a lifetime opportunity until you knock it out of the park. And if you don't, it's just another segment that didn't work so well, or maybe worked a little bit, because I think there's a lot of probably iconic moments that didn't happen because guys didn't deliver. And you don't say, man, that would have changed the course of wrestling history if they had delivered. Well, this changed the course of a lot of wrestling history. I mean, this made CM Punk the guy that, after he left, they were chanting his name in all these arenas, wanting him back. I mean, he was freaking over after this thing. I mean, and he was over before, but this pipe bomb promo, as they call it, was incredibly well delivered, which it had to be if it was going to be this iconic moment. I don't think anybody realized it was going to be this iconic.
Yeah, that night on commentary, you were not there. It was Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole. So I don't think that you would have necessarily been in the building. But
nope, I wouldn't have been. No way I would have been.
Yeah. As far as modern era promos go, it's got to be up there with, if not the most famous, it's on a short list.
Yeah.
And I think all these years later, when people talk about iconic promos, they usually quote one line from it. And so this carrying on the pipe bomb promo, like Dusty Rhodes' most famous promo, when people talk about it, they would either say the view never changes, or they would talk about hard times. Like those are two iconic Dusty Rhodes promos, and you say those phrases and you just know it. I think this is going to be on that short list with the benefit of hindsight. And it's crazy to think he's still not done. There's lots of rumor and innuendo out there that says that, he's got another year or two in before he maybe does a retirement tour like John Cena. Do you think that he'll be a lifer with WWE? Could you see him working behind the scenes in a Triple H or Bruce or Michael Hayes type position behind the scenes, or do you think he'll go on to other ventures one day?
He's a guy that's got a really good mind, and a mind outside the business. He obviously loves the business and he's very wrapped up in it. That's why he's so successful. But, he's had other ventures. And so I don't know if he will or not. I only know, coming from anecdotal interviews I've heard, specifically talking about, Triple H talking about him, about how he enjoys, talking about CM Punk, how much he enjoys going down to NXT. And, that's something you either enjoy or you don't. Some guys enjoy going and helping other people out. Some people don't. Some people don't like being coaches. It sounds like CM Punk does. So I have a feeling that he'll be around for a long time. And I hope he is. I think he's a huge benefit to WWE.
Well, we had a blast talking about CM Punk today. Can't wait to see what's next for him as he's going to start winding down his WWE career. But in the meantime, I want to help you save some money at savewithconrad.com. Take a look at what the New York Federal Consumer Credit Panel has said. They're talking about more debt than ever for Americans. And if you too find yourself struggling with credit card debt, let me just go ahead and tell you to do what our man McIntyre did. He's a plumber in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He had a baby on the way and needed a new car. He's got lots of new expenses that he needed to tackle. So he knew what to do. He went to savewithconrad.com. He worked with our team to use the equity he'd built up in his house in order to make life a little easier. He got the new wheels situated. He paid off some debt. He skipped a couple of house payments. And when he started making payments again, guess what? He's saving over $1,000 a month. But how much can you save? Find out right now for free at savewithconrad.com. Let my team run the numbers for you. And listen, we're going to tell you the math ain't mathing. You got a good deal. Or what if you can save more than $1,000 a month? There's no cost, no obligation. And if we can't help you save some time, or save some money too, we won't waste your time. We also give you a 3-year guarantee. We do it in writing. If the interest rates improve over the next 3 years, we'll refinance you again without charging a whole new set of lender fees. This is going to give you the peace of mind of knowing you got the best deal possible right now, but you don't have to waste money later. Keep more of your own money. Go right now to savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender, savewithconrad.com. And John, you were telling me before we clicked record that whenever you're making these appearances, you occasionally run into people who use savewithconrad.com. You're muted, John.
Somebody has done, as it was muted, thanks to Dave Silver that was sitting there watching his through his VPN and watching some stuff that he shouldn't be watching during the show. And but yes, every time I go to an appearance, I hear about people talking about savewithconrad.com. Tell me, hey, Conrad did my mortgage, Conrad did this, and I always say, how much did you save? And every one of them knows the amount. It's really cool. You've done an incredible job with people, Conrad, getting them into homes, getting them into things that are affordable.
Well, and here's what I know. You and I are aligned. Even though I'm the guy who some people would say, oh, he sells debt. No, he doesn't. He sells a plan to get out of debt.
That's
John
right.
and I are aligned. The best debt is no debt. That is the way to be. You want to be debt-free. It's going to give you the peace of mind to do the things you want to do. And that's what we want to try to do for you at savewithconrad.com. John, I appreciate all the time today, man. It's interesting to take a look at the success that WWE has and how they keep all this momentum rolling. I think everybody and their brother is curious about, hey, what's next for TNA? We'll see what's happened with AAA. I know that you probably don't have any inside information, but I got to ask. There was a lot of whispers through wrestling last week. I heard it. You may have heard it too, that Lorenzo Fertitta, the former owner of the UFC, might be interested in becoming the new owner of TNA. What big news that would be if that were true. Have you heard those rumors, and what do you make of those, John?
I've heard those rumors, but I have no inside information, so I don't want people to quote me as I have inside information. I've only heard the same thing that people have heard off the internet. Lorenzo Fertitta prints money. That guy is freaking, he's unbelievable. With his Landry's, with the Houston Rockets, he is a freaking rainmaker. I hope it's true, because if it is, he can do great things with it. I mean, I think somebody can do great things with TNA, and I think somebody's going to end up getting it. I think they're going to get a TV contract. Again, I have no inside information on this. I've been watching this business for 30 plus years. You can see what's coming. But if Lorenzo Fertitta gets involved, that is huge. For those that don't know, he's one of the Fertitta brothers that bought into UFC for $2 million. That company's now part of a global conglomerate worth about $30 billion right now. So it's pretty good return on money. And Lorenzo is a brilliant guy, man. He's a smart dude that knows how to make money with entertainment properties. And restaurants are entertainment properties, and he's really good at it.
By the way, when you were rattling off the Rockets and Landry's, you're talking about Lorenzo's third cousin, Tillman Fertitta.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought it was the same Tillman. I thought it was the same Fertitta.
Isn't it amazing? Like, there is so much, like, the success of the Fertitta family.
I've got the Fertitta brothers wrong.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, Lorenzo has a different brother.
Tillman is the one from Houston.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, but still Lorenzo was the one that bought in with Tillman for the UFC, right?
Frank is who
how many freaking Fertittas are there?
Well, I think Frank and Lorenzo are brothers.
Yeah.
And that they did the station casinos, but I guess there was a relative that was older than Tillman, Frank, and Lorenzo, and he had a big ownership in Red Rocks, which is why Dana still goes to Red Rocks. The point is, guys, these are massive businessmen who know how to make money. It legitimately runs in their
family. Let me correct myself. The Fertitta brothers are the ones that have done incredible stuff. And if you've got the Fertitta brothers, I've completely mistaken about which one's which. I can't tell them apart.
They're all freaking billionaires, successful businessmen, John. And if there's a Fertitta getting in
they've all got 3 commas to their name.
Yes, sir. And by the way, Lorenzo allegedly has Endeavor stock, TKO stock, long-time relationship. You'll recall UFC sold to Endeavor. So he's tight with RA. He's tight with Dana. It just feels like a no-brainer. And I, for one, am here for it. It's going to be great for wrestling. I can't wait for us to talk about it. We'll be doing that next week, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you'll make plans to join us. If you haven't already, go hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell, because you never know what's coming or who may show up. It's Something to Wrestle with John Layfield.